Because we're all staying. Good afternoon, everybody. It is 2:05. We will go ahead and call the Board of Trustees regular meeting for May 26, 2026 to order. Clerk Hall, can I have the roll call, please?
Of course. I am present. President Mayberry.
Here.
Dr. Nicolette.
Good afternoon.
Trustee Phoenix.
Present.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Westlake.
Here.
Vice President Woodley.
Here.
And Student Trustee Maya Hartley. Here. All right, all present and accounted for.
Wonderful, thank you. Item 1.03 is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to ask Nikki Goebbels if she'd come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. I want to acknowledge Nikki is a recent graduate from UNR and completed all her teacher preparation. And Clerk Hall has a gift that she'll give you following the pledge on behalf of this body. So congratulations to you. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki is a Communications Division's Administrative Secretary and has done a great job supporting this board on a variety of projects and initiatives and communicates with us and takes great care of us. So we just want to show our appreciation to you and congratulations. And now, item 1.04 is our land acknowledgement. And I've asked Trustee Nicolette to read our land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that Washoe County School District schools and communities are situated on the traditional homelands of the three major tribes of the Great Basin Native American peoples, including the Northern Paiute, Washoe, and Shoshone tribes. We honor their ancestors, past and present, and recognize these lands as a continued gathering place for communities. We express our respect and gratitude for the opportunity to live, work, and learn here in Nevada.
Thank you, Trustee Nicolette. Item 2.01 is the approval of our consent agenda item. I do have one item that we're going to pull, item 2.13 for discussion. Are there any other items my colleagues want to pull? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to approve items 2.01 to 2.12, right, and 2.14. Okay. Thank you. I apologize. We do have a public comment. I apologize for that. And then we'll entertain a motion. So we'll take public comment on the consent agendas. Thank you.
John Eppolito for consent agenda item 2.14.
Hi, I'm John Eppolito with Protect Nevada Children. Cell phone towers on school grounds. I know that we were able to stop it in Incline Village when the district wanted to put a cell phone tower at the high school. And it was right after we stopped the International Baccalaureate. So I still had everybody's email, and they were used to getting emails from me. And it's kind of a funny thing because some of the people that were against me on the IB were with me on the stopping the cell tower at the high school. So we won that. Thank you. I remember getting a call from one of the board members. He was the president or vice president at the time. I don't know if Diane was here, but he called me, and the first part of his comment was, we're in the subject, our mission is education, not whatever he said after that, helping the cell phone companies get rich. And I'm not saying that cell phone towers cause harm to students, but there is some research that shows that possibly. So I got this article from EHS, and the title of the article is Schools That Ban Cell Towers. And I pulled out one section. The section is titled, What School Districts Ban Cell Towers on Their School Property? And there's 6 districts that they talk about. 3 of them are in California. So I would like to submit that for the record, please. It doesn't seem, even though some of us were in here at the time concerned about the cell towers, it doesn't seem that the district ever really took that into consideration ever. But please present that for the record. And the just under $2,000 that you guys get per year for these towers, last meeting or the meeting before, you guys just approved $2 million for 1 year for iReady, which is not very, or 5 of you approved it. 2 of you were on the right side of that issue, in my opinion, and said no to iReady. That $2 million, that would, if we had a cell tower on every school district or every school in the school district, that would be about $2 million. I don't know why you guys need 1,000 here and 1,000 there so badly, except that you waste money on silly things like iReady and tens of millions of dollars on software. And during the iReady presentation, one of the things that came up is, and this was on Chris's slides, student data remains the property of the school district. About 5-6 sessions ago, that's also for the record, about 5 or 6 sessions ago, Protect Nevada Children partnered with the homeschool people, and what they were trying to do is say the student data belongs to the parents. And we both lost on that. Well, really who lost is the kids. Thanks for bringing it up again, Chris. Thank you very much.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So once again, I'll entertain, thank you, JJ. Once again, I'll entertain an item, consent agenda for approval of 2.02 to 2.12 and 2.14.
So moved.
Second.
Who was okay. I have a motion by Trustee Smith with a second by Vice President Woodley. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we'll go to item 2.13 for discussion. This is approval of Board of Trustees to provide authority to Board President, Vice President, to negotiate the employment agreement between the Board of Trustees and the incoming superintendent. I think Trustee Westlake and Trustee Smith asked for this item to be pulled. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a little at loss here because my computer's not being cooperative, but, so I can't read exactly what the item number says because I can't get in there, but it does have to do with the negotiations of the new contract for our upcoming superintendent, Tiffany McMaster, and that President Mayberry and Vice President Woodley will kind of lead the charge, so to speak, in hammering out those details. And I don't have issue with that at all. I would like it clarified, though, how the other trustees are going to have input. And I know that my question, when I said, how are we going to move forward with other trustees being able to have input with ideas or concerns or things that they feel are really, really important, because we can't all think of everything. You just can't. And it was, well, that President Mayberry and Vice President Woodley would be happy to have our input, but nothing is lined out on how that is supposed to take place, how we're supposed to communicate this. So I just want it to be clarified how that is supposed to be taking place. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'll take any input from all the trustees. Just we can have a verbal conversation, or if you want to send me an email, that's fine. This is no different than what we did 2 years ago. Trustee Smith was the president at the time, so she should know. And, you know, the contract that we have now is essentially with the current superintendent is largely the template that we'll use going forward. So that should really give you a sense of the direction that we're going to go, if that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
I do appreciate that, because it does, that kind of, it fleshes out a little bit more of what is actually going to take place and kind of where we're coming from. And I did kind of want it stated that it's okay for us to be, you know, contacting you and having a voice in this.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Trustee Smith.
Before I have my questions, I just want to plus one that, so too many superintendent negotiations over the years. But when President Taylor and Vice President Nicolette did it, and then when I did it with now President Mayberry, we followed the same model with that. And then every trustee that wanted to talk with one of the negotiating team members had that conversation and was invited to do so. So that follows exactly what we've done before. So, and you probably remember that too, both of you do, because we've done that so many times. So thank you. I've got a couple questions, and then I'll just kind of get to the idea. First, a thank you to Mr. Peck, who connected me. Where he is? Where is he? Oh, there he is. He's hiding behind Mr. Bazo. Thank you for connecting me with Mr. Hall so that I could talk with him as well. And I think Anthony Hall is an absolutely fantastic attorney. My questions are process-oriented, definitely not personal, because I think he's an absolutely remarkable attorney. Thank you for the answers that we already had through the regular trustee process. I did have a clarifying question on one of them. I did ask the question, who's the client specifically in the contract? And it said, the answer is the Washoe County School District through its Board of Trustees in accordance with Board Policy 9165. And that one I didn't understand, because so Mr. Hall did negotiate the contract for us back in 22, but he was the independent board counsel at the time. And then in 24, we had an independent board counsel. But in both of those cases, the independent board counsel represented the Board of Trustees. So I was wondering if maybe our chief legal counsel could explain what it means that the district is actually the client right now and not the board.
Hi, Sarah Montalvo, Chief Legal Counsel. It's effectively the board, but the board acts on behalf of the Washoe County School District because you guys can't independently be sued or be sued. So it's a very technical way to put that it's really the board, but it's Washoe County School District through you as the board and the stakeholder. But it is the board, and that is why it is coming to you as the whole board for the board to retain Anthony Hall or Simon Hall Johnson in this matter, and he would be working with the board, and the board would be voting on the item.
Perfect. So that, because the reference to the board policy, I pulled it up, and then it's like EI, which is that the independent board counsel represents the board. So even though the client is the school district, it's really the specific interests of the board. Because, and again, going back to previous training, we had always been taught that there are really three interests in the matter. There is, of course, the incoming superintendent. I was looking at our current superintendent. There's the district, and then there's the board. And so the independent board counsel represents the interests of the board, but is obviously aligned with and collaborative with the Office of General Counsel, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, that answers my question. So the other question that I had here, and I appreciate the answers to it, so I'm not going to cover them already because they're available. I think Mr. Hall is absolutely wonderful. I think that his practice is great. I do have a preference that the board would have done a competitive process, even though I recognize it's not required by NRS. I believe independent board counsel should be chosen by us. But in the interest in time, the concern that I have here, and I very much appreciate it, I had a wonderful conversation with Mr. Hall this morning. I think the world of him. So fundamentally, it comes back to me that an attorney who is subordinate to the superintendent with existing matters and likely future matters, because there is the representation for JROTC, and hopefully we'll continue on with the practice of him as the chief negotiator, which I hope that we do, because I think he does a wonderful job. But I prefer a brighter line in the separation from somebody who's going to represent the board in the contract negotiation for the superintendent, and not have a direct person that is also subordinate to and takes direction from the same superintendent. To me, it feels blurry, even if it doesn't qualify as a conflict. So when I did talk with Mr. Hall about that, and we had a great conversation, I also see the suggestion down here, and I know we'll do public comment if we have any, but he and I did talk about the possibility of staying with the practice, but using an attorney that does not have any current contractual arrangements with the district and is not currently in a reporting structure to the superintendent. So just as and I just think in general that our employment representation shouldn't be anyone that is in a subordinate relationship with the superintendent. So after public comment, or I'd love to hear discussion, I have no problem staying with the firm, but I would just ask that we use a different attorney that doesn't have a current contractual relationship that's under the direction of the superintendent. So that's what I wanted to share, and I'm interested in anybody's thoughts. Thank you.
Any feedback? Any
Ye-
discussion, further discussion? Yeah, Trustee Nicolette. go
Thank
ahead.
you. I'm a little concerned about the notion of an independent firm, attorney, legal firm, and referring to any one of the members as a subordinate. I don't see that connection.
Thank you for that. I'll clarify, and if I used the wrong word, I apologize. Somebody who is under the direction of, so that follows the direction of the superintendent. So the direction is the superintendent makes the direction, gives the approval, sets the direction, is the day-to-day, for example, in negotiations, the day-to-day leader, Office of General Counsel, takes direction of and from. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify the wording.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, you know,
Sorry, we're still processing. Go ahead.
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, Trustee Westlake.
Thank you. I didn't think of that. And that's why, after I'd gotten the response, I could have been okay with that. Okay, you can talk to Adam, you can talk to Alex, your colleagues. But that's why I was saying, you don't always think of everything. No one can possibly think of everything. And so I do appreciate the light on that Trustee Smith is saying, because I have to say that I don't have the firm is wonderful. Mr. Hall is wonderful. However, I think in this instance, it would be cleaner and less questionable to have someone who is not going to have to answer to the superintendent on future workings. And people are human. I mean, we are human. We are not machines. We can't just flip a switch and say, I am strictly going into this with the mindset that I am not thinking ahead of what the relationship is with the superintendent. It's not possible. It's just not possible. And so I think it rests on us to understand that does happen every day in negotiations and workings, and we really should be careful in that respect. And just get another attorney from the same firm, but that isn't going to be answering or working with the superintendent with future endeavors. I think it's much, much cleaner. Thank you.
Trustee Clerk Woodley.
Thank
Vice
you.
President Woodley.
Thank you. So, as I understand it, he has been involved with contracts previously. We've used them before. And he's also worked for the district before as well.
He was retained for the 2022, I believe that's the year, representation of the board members in the negotiation of the superintendent contracts. And actually, the superintendent contract template is the one he created.
Okay, thank you. So from my perspective, the way I see it is our community is big, but it's still small. And when we're looking at areas of specific professionalism, services, if you do it so long in this community, you're gonna touch someone. We're only 1 or 2 degrees of separation. So if we were to start doing that and declaring that, I had 2 concerns. Number one, we probably won't be able to do business because this individual, Mr. Hall, he has the experience. This is what he does. I would hate for us to settle with someone less experienced, because then you get what you pay for, of course, you know, whatever you select. But also, I don't want us to start diminishing or limiting our opportunities with service providers because of perceived conflicts of interest, which I think it's up to whether it's an engineer or an attorney or a doctor. As a professional, they themselves have the ability to conflict themselves out or identify whether or not they're conflicted. So I would rely on the professional to inform us whether or not they're conflicted.
That's true of our professional rules of conduct, is the attorney has the duty to determine whether or not there's a conflict. The conflict of interest is whether or not the representation would be materially adverse and with the current clients. And since the Washoe County School District is the current client, he put in, he emailed that he does not see a conflict, he does not see anything, and he does, and so he has not identified a conflict of interest because he does not believe that the representation would be material adverse. In fact, it would align.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on it, I was just reading his response. I hadn't had a chance to look at it yet. So I do make sure, trustees, that you look at his response on the comments that JJ sent out. And look, I mean, he's a longtime, well-respected labor attorney, and Trustee Smith, I'm sure, would agree with that. I appreciate your point, but I'm confident that if he felt he was in conflict, that he would not take the contract. So I'm certainly comfortable moving this forward. But those are my comments. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Yeah. Do we have any public comment on 2.1?
I have no cards for this item.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Clerk Hall. I'm not firing on all cylinders. Any further discussion?
Just the only input I had. I appreciate Beth bringing that up because it kind of, you kind of have to shoot one across the bow. You have to get that look. And so I like that perspective. It gives us a kind of, check and balance, see what do you really got here? What are you really looking at? And I like that. I like that you brought that up. But I also like what Alex had mentioned when it comes to institutional knowledge and having some experience and have it done prior. So it really does kind of like set the stage and the foundation of making that objective look. So I appreciate your comment, putting that out there. And that was just my comment to that there.
President Mayberry?
Thank you, Trustee Phoenix. Clerk Hall.
No, go ahead.
Clerk Hall, Trustee Smith, and Clerk Hall.
I do, just a couple things. So back in '22, Mr. Hall was actually engaged as the independent counsel for the board at the time. That's a really important distinction. He sat at the dais, he did our OML representation, and he negotiated the contract, so it was slightly different. He's obviously great, because it's definitely not him. The motion is written very broadly, though. It doesn't actually say that it would have to be Mr. Hall. The letter says that, but the motion says that we're hiring the firm. So where I struggle with this is that I agree, of course, you need a professional of any type to decide whether or not they feel that there's a conflict. I, as an individual trustee, believe that anyone who reports to the office of the job shouldn't be part of the negotiating for the job. But the motion is written broadly enough where it hires the firm. So is there no way to designate that? And that's okay. If that's the pleasure of the board and everybody wants to choose him, I just want to navigate the vote appropriately because the motion is written broadly, but I just do not fundamentally agree with retaining someone who also reports to the office of the person we're negotiating the contract with. And I want my vote to be accurate, but it's written broadly because it hires the firm. So are we hiring Mr. Hall directly or the firm or what? Because I need to make sure that my vote appropriately reflects my firm belief on this, which is, again, no disrespect to Mr. Hall.
Yeah, as the board president, it is the intent to use Anthony Hall. I'm going to make that crystal clear, that who works for the firm. It's not the intent to use an associate of his. You want to add to that?
But in terms of your question of whether or not the agenda item is drafted in a way, the engagement letter also contemplates that other people in the law firm could also work on it. So you are not limited with the agenda item just to use Mr. Hall. You could use Simon Hall Johnson, and if it is the board's pleasure to, if you vote the way it is drafted, and you don't, if the full board decides that they do not want Mr. Hall to be the chief person assigned, you could in theory go with someone else in that law firm. Or if the board wants to vote, you could still vote Simon Hall Johnson. Anthony could be the key person, and the engagement letter allows other people in the firm to work on it as well.
Trustee Nicolette.
Thank you for that. And Beth, I think, trustee, I think that's an excellent point, and that's why I like the motion, because it is broad, because I think it's important that Simon Hall Johnston make the decision as professionals as to who is ultimately going to do this work. I personally don't want to get in those weeds. I appreciate the letter that Anthony Hall wrote. Been working with him. We have not always agreed, but he is a consummate professional. He does his homework. He's kind. He listens. Again, I prefer that Simon Hall and Johnston make that professional decision. I hear, President Mayberry, what your desire is, and I respect that as well. I'm going to tell you, ultimately, what's most important to me, two things. We get this done, and we get it done right. It's good and it's right. Second thing, I don't want to spend any more than $5,000 to $10,000 as it's stated in the agenda. $5,000 would please me greatly. Thank you.
Clerk Hall.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a little slow today. I've had a migraine all day. So I just reread this just to clarify, and it sounds to me like Mr. Hall has also identified, both in his letter and in the response email, some additional associates that he would have help. He also really clarified that, in his opinion, I assume that he would not want to cross any ethical lines because he really likes his license and wants to keep being barred. So I feel really confident, knowing a lot of lawyers in my other job, that that's really important to them. But I do want to say I really appreciate the questions that were asked and the clarifying what cases and what work he was currently doing with us, because that was my first, I will be really honest, that my first instinct was like, wait, but isn't he already working for us in other ways? Is that going to be a problem? And I immediately thought that. And so I think it's really important that we had this conversation, so that the public knows that that's really important to us, that we want to keep that as transparent as we possibly can. It's legal matters, so we can't do everything in the public eye. But I think that that's an incredibly important point. I also really appreciate the reflection that Mr. Hall had in his email that he sent us, in that he said, I thought about it even after I got off the phone with Trustee Smith, and I really don't believe it, but I also have identified some other people in my office that could help us as we go through this process. So I think I like the way that item is written so that it's hiring the firm and not the person, because I think that that gives them some leeway. And I'm with you. Let's keep it on the lower end. So that's where I stand. Thank you. Sorry for my rambling.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you. Trustee Smith.
thanks. But he says in the email that it's easily done within my firm if this is the direction given to me by the board. And that's why I come back to the motion, because we only have power collectively as a body. And so someone will throw out a motion. I have a feeling I know where it's going to go. I can vote my conscience just fine. But the only way we give direction is by a majority vote of the board. And so while I would be fine with another attorney with a wall, I hear what the president's intent is with this, and I feel really caught in this gray area. And in reading his email, it says the direction given to me by the board, and we only get one shot to do that. We have no individual authority, we only have collective authority. And I'll turn my light on and let somebody make the motion, and we'll just go from there. But that's why I'm just so unsure about this, quite honestly.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Trustee Nicolette.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing. We've been through this several times, and I think being unsure is really important, because I will speak for myself. I feel I owe it to our students, our employees, our families, our community to do something that's lasting. And there's no promise there, because we can't make a promise to that. But I certainly agree with you, Trustee Smith, that we want to get this right, and this is our time to do that. And I have a lot of hope and faith. I'll never give up on that. So, to that, I'm going to make a motion. The Board of Trustees provides authority to the Board President and Vice President to negotiate the employment agreement between the Board of Trustees and Tiffany McMaster, and to retain Simons, Hall, and Johnston to assist in the negotiations and drafting of an employment agreement between the Board of Trustees and Tiffany McMaster.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion from Trustee Nicolette, second by Trustee Phoenix, to approve agenda item 2.13 as stated. Any further discussion? Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be a no, but only based on the direction that the intent is to have Mr. Hall do the work. And again, this is absolutely nothing personal. I just fundamentally believe that somebody who reports to the office should not help negotiate their contract, and I very much appreciate the discussion.
Okay. Thank you, as do I. Thank you, Trustee Smith.
Just only on caveat on that, again, thank you for bringing it up and your experiences in the past. So to kind of, for me to kind of see your point of view, it allows me to kind of, weigh both sides and really take a hard look at it. And I do like the fact that maybe the way it's worded, but I also have that professionalism, that professional side, that they're going to do the right thing. And we still have our checks and balances with our own legal counsel and ourselves. So, I appreciate that discussion. I just want to make sure that you heard that. And I appreciate your input, Diane and Alex.
Okay. See no further discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have, item passes 5-2. Correct? Okay. Thank you, trustees. Move on to our finance items. Item 3.01 is presentation, discussion, public, excuse me. Presentation, discussion, public hearing on a fiscal year 2026-27 tentative budget for all district funds and possible action to approve the fiscal year 2026-27 final budget. Presenters are Mr. Mark Mathers, our Chief Financial Officer, and Jeff Bozzo, our Deputy Chief of Finance. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, trustees, Superintendent Ernst. This is a presentation to consider adoption of our fiscal year 26-27 final budget, that, as noted here, is for the fiscal year beginning July 1 of 2026. It is for all funds, so the budget, we focus a lot of our time during budget process discussions on the general fund, because that is our largest fund and it's for discretionary operations, but our budget does include grant funds, other restricted special revenue funds, capital project funds, debt service funds, and internal service funds. So all of those funds are included in your packet under Appendix B. And so today, towards that end, we will, after some summary comments from myself, Jeff will walk you through the recent status of a grant award for our kindergarten early learning assistant positions and kind of the resulting obligation of the general fund. Then we will need to conduct a hearing on the fiscal year 2026-27 tentative budget. So we'll need to open a hearing, take public comments on the tentative budget, then close the public hearing. Then we can move on to the final action today, which is approval of the fiscal year 26-27 final budget, and we must submit that to the state as noted by June 8th. So for those maybe who haven't been with us since really last year, I wanted to kind of cover this year's budget process because it was a little unique. You'll recall in the spring of 2025, while we were finishing the 25-26 budget, staff came to you and alerted you that we were looking at roughly at least a $10 million shortfall between projected revenues and expenditures. And at that time, the board authorized staff to really impose a hiring freeze and also a review of all renewing or new contracts. And we appreciated that. That allowed the Financial Review Committee, a committee of 5 chiefs, to go through every request to hire a new position during this current fiscal year, as well as all renewing and new contracts, and assess kind of the important significance of those positions, whether we could keep them vacant, whether we needed to move forward or not, and whether we needed the contracts that were being presented by departments. And so that certainly helped us kind of soften the blow here in the development of our 2026-27 budget. So we did that in the spring, and then we started our actual budget process much sooner than ever before. Given the scale of that shortfall, we started meeting with chiefs, the superintendent, and the executive team with all chiefs to go through various budget reduction scenarios, and brought those to you actually in September, well before we usually meet in terms of a budget process, which is usually in January. So again, started early, had a lot that happened through January, and lately it's been kind of nibbling around the edges. One thing, though, that I did want to emphasize, we went over this verbally, I think early spring, but I wanted to talk about the reasons why we have had such a shortfall in the general fund. And again, to clarify, we've covered that shortfall. We have a balanced budget. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. But there are really 2 main reasons why we experienced that shortfall when we started developing a preliminary budget. The largest reason is the level of support we receive from the state. And so, as noted to you, again, I think it was verbally, we modeled what a flat enrollment scenario for our district would be. And you can see there kind of the numbers. That base per pupil funding from the state increased less than 1% for this coming fiscal year. That certainly is not even close to covering inflation. And so in that flat enrollment scenario, our general fund revenues would have only increased $4.2 million, while at the same time our contractual obligations in terms of collective bargaining costs, such as step increases and health insurance increases and just general inflationary costs, we would have seen an increase in our costs of $14.2 million. So the net shortfall, by virtue of the level of funding received from the state, was $10 million. When you exclude the impact of Matter Academy in the North Valleys, which we ultimately did, you can see on the right side of this slide, enrollment declines accounted for $5 million of the net $15 million deficit. So 2/3 of it is due to the level of support from the state. 1/3 or $5 million is due to enrollment declines. As you know, enrollment declines are not unique to Washoe County School District. Virtually every district in Nevada is experiencing enrollment declines. For us, there are three main reasons. The lower birth rates in Washoe, that's attributable somewhat to the high housing values we have and just the unaffordability of housing. Certainly, charter school growth over the last 10 years has also been a reason for our declining enrollment. And then homeschooling, I would say, would be a third reason that we see. We quickly did some math today, just to, again, do a further quantification of that lower level of support we received from the state. When we looked up the year-over-year CPI increase from April 26 to April 25, it's roughly 4%. If we had seen per pupil funding go up 4%, we would have seen state revenues to the general fund increase by roughly $22 million. That would have been more than enough to cover the $15 million shortfall you see here. So we would have had a net increase in funding of $7 million. We could have chose to spend that on cost of living adjustments for our employees, new positions, any number of things. But I wanted to give you a sense of kind of how important state decisions are for funding and the impact that we suffer from that lower increase in per pupil funding of 0.75% from $9,708 to $9,781. The state has a practice, they have to estimate inflation or project inflation when developing the budget. They tend to be very conservative in their inflation estimates. They never end up truing it up to make sure we actually get what inflation truly was. Again, if they had, and if it was 4%, we would be talking about revenue growth of $22 million in terms of per pupil funding. And that it won't be 4% next fiscal year due to fuel increases, right, that have kind of taken hold since April. So, you know, we have done a tremendous job balancing this budget, and as I'll talk at the end, there certainly have been challenges and pain along the way. But I wanted to go over these numbers with you because it is easy to fall into a trap of focusing on one thing, enrollment declines, and thinking that was the whole story, and it wasn't. It's, again, a third of the story. So as you know, we, again, began meeting with you in September. Again, we initially estimated $18 million shortfall in funding, and that included the effects of charter school Matter Academy in our North Valleys that ended up not opening, or we don't think will open later this year. Took a number of actions to reduce that down to 8.3, and then in January, as you'll recall, we had that discussion about Matter Academy. We no longer assume that opening for fall of 2026, but it's probably coming, so we'll have to deal with it in a future fiscal year. So that reduced the shortfall down to 5.3. Had to fund some things along the way. Net shortfall then of 5.7 million, and then you approved a budget reduction plan of $5.7 million to get to a balanced budget situation. And that's kind of been where we've been at for a while now. The wisdom of the board approving those actions in January did allow us to place most of our affected employees. And we, as you'll recall, there were 48 positions that were either deleted or converted from another position in the budget. We're down to 3 or 4 unrepresented employees where we still need to place those employees, but we're seeing now with the overage process completed an opportunity to place those last 3 or 4. So we still believe that will be the case. Everyone will be, presented with a position to take. But we wouldn't have been able to do that without your approval of that budget reduction plan in January. So we thank you. So as I noted, this is a $1.4 billion budget as shown on slide 22. It is balanced, it's structurally balanced for those not conversant in, sophisticated budget principles. That really just means ongoing revenues equal at least ongoing expenditures. And so we've met that budget requirement that is in our board policies. As you know, we have seen a lot of other agencies kind of duck the hard decisions, and like bad news, it generally doesn't tend to get better over time. So we have met the moment this fiscal year again. Jeff will explain, we are using some one-time monies for one-time costs, and that is allowed in board policy. Despite the challenges we've had, we have made some really good positive changes and reforms, I'll call them. As Jeff will cover, we have preserved funding for all of our kindergarten early learning assistants for one additional year. I know kindergarten came up as an issue, so it's really good to be able to do that and kind of maintain that stability at the kindergarten level. We also equalized or levelized K through 3 class sizes at 23, so that brought the kindergarten class sizes down from 25 to 23. And we also made a tweak to how we calculate class size and allocations, and now give full credit for special ed, self-contained students in a classroom. So that was something we were able to do even in the midst of a $15 million shortfall. We've also funded new sports of lacrosse and cheer pending future decisions of this board. We funded all of the step increases and health insurance increases for our employees, so that those benefits have been preserved. We also funded an additional $4.1 million of additional special education positions that are required by IEPs for students. And so that's, an ongoing challenge and cost for us, but we were able to, again, cover that. For other funds, we recently received a notice that we were awarded 190 additional pre-K seats for fiscal year 26-27, so a lot of happy people behind me to do that. Wow, cheering. There's already a celebration in the crowd. I should note 60 of the 190 are for district-sponsored charter schools, so a net of 130 additional pre-K seats for the district. We partnered with Washoe Education Association to create a new salary schedule for our occupation and physical therapy positions, and that allows us for the first time to convert dollars we set aside for contracted OT and PT positions and bring them in-house. And we've been successful in doing that even so far, with probably greater news to come. But that was a success that came about through collective bargaining, and both sides realizing it's better to have in-house positions to provide these services to our students than being at the mercy of private contractors. So that was a really good thing. Similarly, we funded 4 board-certified behavior analyst positions at net zero cost. And then lastly, in terms of kind of non-positions, I want to note that we've maintained very strong debt service fund reserves as a protection, in case there is a downturn in the economy. We can cover our debt service on all of our bonds, and we'll be able to do that in the future. So lots to be proud of, thanks to the decisions of this board earlier in the fiscal year. So just wanted to go over that history real quickly, because I think it is important as we kind of finalize the process to look back, see how we got from there to here. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jeff to kind of update you on several facts.
Trustee Smith, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mathers, I just wanted to give a bit of kudos, because it's easy in times like this to see that it can look like it's gray, but there's still sunlight peeking through. And of all those wonderful things that we still were able to do, I want to particularly bring attention to the conversion of those contracted services to full-time roles. And of course, I appreciate all of our contractors, all the great people that make wonderful things happen in our district, but I love it when we can take that money and then gainfully employ one of our neighbors. So of all the great things you did point out, I just wanted to add an extra kudos onto that. Thank you.
So when we were here,
Trustee Westlake, go ahead, you can chime in too. please.
Sorry, guys, you're on a roll. You're doing great. I have to extend a thank you also. Our special ed kiddos that were only recognized as a quarter and not a whole. And I think that was just an amazing step for this district to do, especially in the crunch that we were in, but to realize how important it is for those kiddos to be seen as a whole and not just a quarter. So in my heart, I am so grateful for that. So grateful. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, you're back on, thanks. Thank you,
All
Trustee
right.
Westlake.
So when we were here for the tentative budget back in April, we had presented an option to you all to preserve all 79 early learning assistants that were previously grant funded by using the general fund fund balance along with EL weighted funding fund balance while we applied for a grant. Good news, we were awarded that grant from the state, which was enough to fund 36 positions, all at our 1- and 2-star schools. So we'll preserve the remaining 43 positions using the general fund balance and EL weighted funding fund balance. And this will preserve the positions through the end of the 26-27 school year. In addition to using the general fund balance for the early learning assistance, we also have budgeted a one-time stipend for certified staff of $3.6 million. The stipend is a one-time $1,000 stipend for certified staff as part of their negotiated agreement that was approved earlier this fiscal year. Looking at the general fund as a whole, if you look at the FY27 final budget column here, and then go down to the ongoing surplus deficit line item, what you'll see is there's nothing there, and that means we have a balanced FY27 budget. Below that, you'll see a spend down of just under $5 million in the general fund balance, again, for the early learning assistance and the certified stipend, and that will bring our fund balance down to $65.7 million for FY27 at a total of 9.7% ending fund balance. Looking at our general fund budget metrics, we're below our 12% general fund ending fund balance target, but also below the maximum ending fund balance that's in state law. We're 0.25% short in our general fund contingency account, but bringing the contingency account to $5 million was part of how we balance the FY26 budget. That's still a healthy level. And then we're also well below the maximum administrative costs in the general fund.
So the good news is we won't cover the other funds unless you do have questions about those funds. Just one last comment about the general fund budget, since this is our last slide on the general fund. I think we can be proud of some of, again, the accomplishments and reforms that were made. I do want to stress again, and I know this board understands this, but if there, again, are shortfalls in the funding from the state to school districts, I really do not foresee the opportunity to achieve efficiencies of any magnitude in our central office function. Candidly, I think with a level of reductions in IT, human resources in the business office, where we were reduced by 7 positions each. I mean, I think the reality even today is that we just are not going to be as fast and quick and responsive to schools as we otherwise would have been, nor do I think we have much bandwidth to really consider special projects of any size. We are all hands on deck in terms of getting the work done that we need to. So it, you know, this budget process, again, had some pain associated with it in terms of reductions to positions, and that really does significantly reduce the capacity we have to do work in the central office. So, you know, for future years, unfortunately, I think that pain's now going to have to be shared at the school level. As troubling as that is, all the more important that we have a successful 2027 session. I do believe there's a presentation on the 27th session in our next item. So you all know that. I think the public needs to understand that when the state fails to increase per pupil funding by at least inflation, we end up cannibalizing positions like we did this year. It's not something we wanted to do, but something we had to do to balance the budget. But now it'll mean cannibalizing other positions, i.e. at schools, in school support positions. And so hope we have better times ahead of us in terms of that level of support from the state. So we're now at the point where we would need to open the public hearing on the fiscal year 27 tentative budget, take any public comments, then close the public hearing, and then consider approval of the final budget for 26-27.
Thank you, Mr. Mathers. I'm going to open up the public hearing on fiscal year 2026-2027 tentative budget and call for public comment.
John Eppolito.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. John Eppolito, Protect Nevada Children. You can find 1,500 of us on Facebook at Protect Nevada Children. I have a FOIA here for Washoe County School District asking how much money is spent on software, services, and devices for kids. It's way more than $10 million that you say you're short. I don't know if I sent it to you guys yet, but it's posted on our Facebook page. 3 of the Scandinavian countries are getting off of devices. At elementary school, almost completely, and at high school, they're limiting it. And what they're going back to, if you could imagine this, is books, papers, and pencils, which are much cheaper and much more effective. So why are Swedish schools stopping the devices? Heavy screen use has led to declining literacy rates, shorter attention spans, and poorer overall performance in international tests, and distractions in the classroom. And I'll submit all this for the record. One of the best lines in this article is from Jonathan Haidt. This was the anxious generation. I think at least one of you read this. I know I did. Highly recommended. A couple months ago, Jonathan wrote, quote, "Putting computers and tablets on students' desks in K-12 may turn out to be among the costliest mistakes in the history of education." I know we never talk about that in here, but that's something very important that we should have been talking about for years, huh, Joe? And then I did send you guys this. Also, it talks about the same type of things, and it's a hearing at the Senate, United States Senate Commerce, Science, Transportation Committee back in January, the impact of screen times on children and young adults. And it's a 2-hour plus hearing, so I highlighted some of the important points. And it's the same thing. Why are we putting kids in front of screens this long? Why are we spending so much money to do it? It's beyond me. But the biggest thing of all, I think, that frustrates me is you guys never talk about it. You just listen to the staff, you let them decide what you're going to do. And my belief over the 12 or 13 years that I've been coming to these meetings, it's the staff that runs the district. You guys are here and you have nice discussions and blah, blah, blah. But if you guys don't put your foot down, it's not going to change. There's too much behind it. The last I knew, the IT department was 80 people. I think they just cut it back 6 or 7, I think Mark said. Way too many. We could probably cut that back to 3 or 4, right, Chris? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Kaylin Evans.
Good afternoon, Mr. Evans.
Hi, Kalen Evans here for the record, president of the Washoe Education Association. I did want to echo a couple of things too and give kudos to the district for the work that we've done around the budget deficit. We all know that the lack of state funding severely cripples our school district. Having a flat budget has been extremely challenging, but even with that, we were able to accomplish a lot of good things via negotiations. I know Mr. Mathers pointed out a couple of them, but in terms of providing COLA raises to our staff in this year, where most districts were getting zero or having step reductions, we also had guaranteed compensation, as he listed, for our certified unit in the second year, which is huge. We increased department lead pay. We were able to expand geographical location allowances to staff. We also have a built into our contract where, as the COLAs increase, that also increases our slot pay, right? So there's increases to slot pay that have gone on. So there was a lot of significant, and then our PTO system, right, which was really geared by, our chief HR officer who helped really compile what that would look like. Those are huge benefits for staff to come in and work. And we did all that while in a 2-year cutting, $28 million from the budget. I would say that a lot of that, to me, honestly, is more impressive than even when we did, substantial pay raises earlier on, because of course, those are great, but when you're flush with cash, it's easy to make those sorts of decisions. And when you're having to make these types of increases on a very, very slim budget, it really shows that there had to be a lot of concerted, collaborative effort to make that happen. And so, we want to make sure that we point that out. And I think, understanding that as we go forward, the importance of collaborative approaches, especially at the legislature, we cannot afford another flat budget. I know I'm, kind of preaching to the choir here. We do appreciate that the district and you all really made an effort to protect classroom-based positions. And we didn't see any cuts to that. And those cuts did have to come at the district level. And we can think, oh, it's the district level, it's the greenhouse. The reality is that the majority of the people that work in this office, they're rank and file employees, just like folks in the classroom, right? They're the HR generalists, they're the payroll specialists, they're the folks that are trying to get replies to emails and get things processed correctly, and how much of the work ends up falling on a very few people. And that does absolutely have a ripple effect on the quality, right, of being employed by the Washoe County School District. So, we're going to be very active, as we always are, at the legislature, but even more so because we just can't afford to have this continue, because we will see significant cuts at the classroom level, which, again, when we're trying to address the class size issue, the caseload issue going forward, none of that will be possible if we don't address funding. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to officially close the public hearing on the fiscal year 2026-27 tentative budget. I will say it's been quite a journey since September when you first came and presented, and to where we got today, as our last speaker had pointed out. So I want to thank you and the superintendent and your team for the tremendous work and dedication to get us to where we are today. And I want to thank all the trustees that are behind this dais for bringing their ideas forth, and the leadership that you've all shown during this process. Thank you. Comments, questions? Trustee Nicolette.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to interlace my questions, which are highlighted in many, with bravos, and I mean this sincerely, and I'm going to start out with the bravo of the approach to, like Kalen Evans was saying, it was a collective endeavor. And I think that's why it's still a little uncomfortable, because there's so much we want to do, but it's the reason we've been successful, is we work together on this, and we all, as someone wisely said, have a little skin in the game, and we maintained our focus, and it felt really good to be able to do that, even though some tough decisions had to be made. So there's the first bravo. I have a question about the nutrition services enterprises and the contractual agreement. Please remind me, what is in the agreement that will help us mitigate the loss? The not bringing in as much money as we thought we would? Maybe I'm interpreting that incorrectly. It's on slide 21. The fund would have a significant deficit in '26 without the contractual guarantee from SFE, our vendor.
Yes. So this last year, we did a request for proposals to consider firms to manage our nutrition services operations. Even though they're a vendor, they manage the entire operations that include in-house staff. And as part of their proposal, the winning vendor, SFE, guaranteed a profit to the fund for the current fiscal year 26, of $1.1 million. So this was, part of the financial proposal they made and evaluation of proposals across the board. We asked every firm who proposed what that guarantee of either a surplus or shortfall would be. They guaranteed a surplus of 1.1 million. So we will have a deficit in that fund in the current year. They will cover that entire deficit plus $1.1 million. And so that's what helps in the current year for us to remain in the black.
Gotcha.
So going forward, they're not going to write that size of a check.
Yeah.
And so in the next several weeks, we will be bringing back to you a presentation on the Nutrition Services Fund and the contract amendment we're required to do every year to extend their contract annually. So we'll have more discussions on that in the next several weeks, but that's what that's referring to.
So we should look for a different level of guarantee.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, makes sense, and I understand. Sometimes you have to do things, and this is not a judgment, it's a fact. Sometimes you do things to get in the door, and then we see what happens. And we will make it work because we're feeding kiddos. So the next slide is, I'm gonna go to slide 26 because I'm very curious about the Secure Rural Schools Act, because I want to understand how we are using something that I think is very complex, and that is the federal reserves and the forest reserves revenue, which I believe is under the Secure Rural Schools Act. And so how does that relate? What kind of monies do we bring in under that? And does that relate to Incline and Gerlach and Natchez? Just trying to understand. I know I'm getting in the weeds, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, we budgeted $370,000 of federal revenue.
Okay.
It is, and some of that actually is E-rate revenue accruing to the general fund.
All
Jeff,
right.
do you have the number for the?
Yeah, the forest revenue is $20,000.
Oh,
Yeah, we used to get a lot more, and it
Yeah.
has declined over time.
right, it has. Okay, thank you. And again, I understand I'm in the weeds, but I appreciate understanding that. Is there anything else? I want to, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the fund balance decrease concerns me, and I'll make a statement rather than a question. 9.7 from what we would hope in our board policy is 12%. I'm looking at my colleagues and wondering if we shouldn't review that board policy, because I personally would like to have a policy that's based in reality and not a wish, and right now it's not based in reality unless we find another way to shore up that fund balance. I'm not sure how that would look. Maybe you can help me understand.
Yeah, we're, at the tail end of the fiscal year, but again, there's a lot of accruals even past June 30th that we've got to book to close out the fiscal year. I do foresee a good chance of slightly higher than expected local revenues, i.e. interest earnings. It's complex between realized and unrealized gains and losses and so forth. But I do think there's a chance we end up higher than 9.7% due to, again, local revenues, not state revenue per se. So we'll come back with our annual comprehensive financial review, our act for our financial statements, to show you how actuals have performed over budget. I think we will probably end up slightly higher than 9.7% is what I'm trying to say. But again, we've got to close out the fiscal year. This is a heavy time for expenditures, so we'll see how those numbers shape up and report back to you.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that because I would like to not continue to decrease that fund balance. It's a little worrisome to me. And then I'm going to end on a kudo. Slide 20. It does my heart. It just sings out loud, when I read that, that we have the district debt service reserves and debt coverage remain strong, and that we have paid down our bonds. And so we're not saving money, but we're no longer spending that money. And that has been because of expertise, prudence, and an outside consultation. And I just say bravo. That's really good news. Let's continue that. Thank you.
Trustee Smith.
Thank you, President Mayberry. It's not so much a question about this, but it's more to Dr. Nicolette. I don't think you're in the weeds. I think it is our responsibility to track every single taxpayer penny that we have. I like your questions. I think that this is informed oversight. And when we see things that are curious to us, they're probably curious to any number of our community members as well. And I like the questions personally, and I really like this entire process. It's not as if you apologize, but I just want to reflect on that and say that these are good questions, and we are accountable for this money. And so I think it's been a healthy and rigorous process. Thank you.
Superintendent Ernst.
Thank you, President Mayberry. I concur. I appreciate those questions as well. I think it's really important that we demonstrate fiscal responsibility, and I think we've done that. I want to offer a very sincere thank you to our finance team, to our trustees, to our leadership team. Again, if we put it in context, over the past 2 years, we've had to cut $26 million out of our budget. But we've provided COLAs for our employees. We haven't laid any employees off. All of the employees that were impacted have jobs within our organization, some even better paid. We've been able to reinvest dollars towards significant areas of focus. Frankly, I'm very pleased with the efforts that have gone forth, and I feel like we've been exemplary in using the monies towards our priorities. And I'm very grateful for all of the efforts that have occurred in this area. And I concur that going forward, the decisions in the absence of increased revenue, one of the things that we have prided ourselves on over the past couple of years is the ability to keep these cuts away from directly impacting our students, our schools, and our families. And I think what we heard today is a harbinger of what is in front of us and the continued prudence that will be needed to exercise to address the realities of educational funding in Nevada. So I just wanted to conclude with a very sincere thanks to the finance team, to the leadership team in the audience, to our partners, our associations, for a job very well done in very difficult circumstances. So thank you.
Any other further questions, clarifications? Team, let me ask you this. When do you expect to come back, and when do we start the process for fiscal 28?
Yeah, really good question. What drives every other year the development of the budget really is the state budget process. So in early December, we'll hear from the Economic Forum. They actually met this morning, but they'll make their official forecast of state revenues in early December of 26. And then the governor will release his recommended budget along with the state of the state in January. And that really, in those years that coincide with the legislative session, kicks off the discussions, because I won't have a per pupil number until then, right? And so, we might be doing some preliminary work. I expect that we would under new superintendent, but we've kind of got to hold our powder until we see what the state's proposed budget is. We'll come to you in January to report on what that will reveal in terms of just overall statewide funding K through 12, and then more specifically Washoe. And then we'll just have to ride out the whole session, because, right, we don't hear till the very end of the session where actually school districts will come out at, and, then we'll go from there.
Thank you for that. That makes sense. Okay. If there's no other further questions, happy to entertain a motion. Yep. We've already had budget. We've already had comment. Yep.
You entertain a motion? You ready?
Yes, I will. Yeah, thank you.
Before I do that, though, you already heard from everybody else, but I like that last part where you talked about the challenges that are coming ahead of us. And thank you for being open and upfront about that and doing all the legwork up in front. But we know we have those hard decisions that Joe mentioned earlier coming up ahead of us. So thank you for keeping us in the loop and very detailed, very out in the open. So with that, I move that the Board of Trustees approves the final budget for fiscal year 2026-27.
Second?
Okay, thank you, Trustee Phoenix, for making a motion to move for approval on the budget, item 3.01, second by Trustee Nicolette. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're on final approach. We are going to move to, everybody good? Nobody wants to break? Good, okay. We're going to move to our items for presentation and discussion, which are items 4.01 and 4.02. We're going to take these items together to allow for more fluid conversation because there's so much overlap between the two. But the items will be voted on separately. Our presenters, Mr. Dylan Sheaver is with us from Pinion Public Affairs. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the Board of Trustees. I am Dylan Shaver, Pinion Public Affairs, your intergovernmental relations contractor for going on 3 years now. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I've obscured the clicker from myself. There it is. Okay. So we are here to, earlier than ever before, we're here to talk to you about a handful of things today. First, the WCSD platform, the principles that inform the construction of that platform, what we use the document for, and then to begin to sort of take your feedback as we shape that document going into 2027. Second, we will talk about the NAS Invest document. You normally hear that on consent, but because our own superintendent played such a leadership role in that organization, and also because it has really taken on a drastically different form than it usually is, it seemed valuable to present to you sort of the specifics of what that looks like, how we got there, and what the plan is for that moving forward. And then finally, you will get sort of just a broad overview and really a reminder that we do have a deadline coming up for submitting the district bill draft requests. So without further ado, I did miss, okay. All right, there we go. I did want to briefly take a point of personal privilege here and highlight my slides today are from my own children's art show at their school. So shout out to Brooke Saffel, their art teacher. She does such a great job with their art program. And in putting this together, I think you guys know that I've never been the type of political operator who has a bunch of pictures of himself shaking hands with the Alex Woodleys of the world or anybody else, but on my wall, and I instead like to feature the kids where I can. So, without further ado, what is the platform? What are we doing here? The platform is a quick reference document that expresses the board's intent on a handful of key policy areas that allow the superintendent, his team, and my own team to act quickly and nimbly during the legislative process. The sort of scenario we are avoiding is, of the 400 some bills we track on the district's behalf, is a scenario wherein we are bringing each of those back to this board for discussion and considerations and, what do we think about this, X, Y, and Z. And so what we try and do is we capture the motivating principles behind the way WCSD approaches public policy generally early on. This is our third time going through this process with WCSD. Believe it or not, it's also the third superintendent we've done it with. So we like to make sure that we can capture both the sentiment of the executive leadership team from the district. We also capture the board's feedback as well. From there, we take it to some of our bargaining units and shop it with them. And we try and make it an open and public discussion. So I'm here a couple of times throughout the drafting process. A good platform, I think that I've shown you this exact same slide several times, but I just do like to ground everybody in a conversation. A good platform is approachable. We can distribute it to people in this audience, and without much background, they can understand what it is we're trying to do there, which of course means we're out of the weeds. We're getting out of the specifics of policy jargon and things like that. It is strategic, meaning it conforms to the other things that the organization is working on. And a good example of that, we just heard from Mr. Mathers and his talented team about all of the budget stresses we're under. We want to make sure the platform conforms to those realities and advocates where we need to advocate. You have a strategic plan that is in place and by all early indications seems to be working the way you intended it to. So we would want to align the platform to the principles in that. And in putting all of that together, it of course gives everybody clear direction of sort of what to do with it when we are on the ground at the legislature on a daily basis. And of course, timely and useful, and this is why we've done this earlier every year. Approving a legislative platform in September, October, December, everybody's bill drafts are already submitted by that point. And so we've sort of robbed ourselves of our ability to have productive conversations, which is essentially like going to play in the Super Bowl, having not played any of the 16 previous games. So again, we just try and move it up a little bit. That's the only sports reference I know. I got a look from Trustee Smith. Only one I know. It's like 18 or 19 games once the playoffs are there. I realize I made a mistake. As it stands today, your platform is built on 4 planks. These have actually been unchanged since we did our first draft prior to the 23 legislature. And those planks are to embrace a truly modern educational system. Sometimes we talk about how, that there's a tug of war between, and we just heard it in public comment, between what's the right tech to use, what's the wrong tech to use. We're using a school calendar that has been the same for 200 years. And are we evaluating students in the right ways and all that? We want to make sure that we are using the tools that are available to us, that our educators know work, and that also sort of reflect modernity and will give us the opportunity to educate kids the best we can. In space where students can thrive. So the second plank is to create those space and opportunities for students to thrive. This is kind of a dual purpose plank within your platform. It acknowledges a couple of things. One, the legislature needs to invest in certain things that the school district can do, but this is also where we talk about wrap services and services that the community can provide. Because what we have seen time and time again, of course, is when other services, when wrap services are cut or not provided to students and their families, the first place it shows up is in our classrooms. And so in this case, we sort of acknowledge like, hey, this is an entire ecosystem. It's not just schools, but if you're going to do something over here, it's going to affect us in our own schools. It also sort of says, hey, give us the tools we need to allow those schools to be safe for students, which we can talk more about in Plank 4. Strategic and sustainable funding. I suspect, unfortunately, we will be talking about for time immemorial. This state has historically underinvested in education. It is underinvested in the entire vertical of what you would generally call public-facing services, whether it's mental health investment, whether it's social services, healthcare, freaking Medicaid reimbursement. We remain at the bottom of a lot of these lists, and so we are sort of competing with a set of other underfunded priorities, and we do have key advantages. We are by far the sort of most visible public service that people regularly consume in the state, but this will continue to be the most critical piece of our platform, whether it is, and I think Trustee Westlake mentioned it about half an hour ago, whereas we are funding certain students at only 25% of a student, whether it is sort of not allowing the categorical weights to layer on top of one another, or just the fact that the base per pupil funding is too dang low. This is critical. We talk about strategic funding. We're not looking for one-shots. They're helpful where we can use them, but I think we saw with the SB 231 funds from a couple of years ago, now we're sort of just waiting for the legislature to pass that bill every couple of years, which is ultimately not great, right? Not a great position to be in. I think Mr. Evans is still in the audience. If he's not, I suspect he would agree. The fact that remains sort of tenuous session after session is a problem. And then finally, of course, give the personnel the support they deserve. Now, this started as a call for the resources to provide wages for classroom personnel a couple of years ago. In 2025, it manifested as doing some real work on the student discipline and classroom behavioral issues that we were dealing with. And we talk about, we have to sort of, these are not combat trained individuals, right? They are there to do a specific job that they went to school for. That should be respected, both in terms of working conditions and the abilities they have to sort of maintain control of their own classroom. As I mentioned before, we try to build a process that works for everybody. So we start with the 2025 platform. We eliminate or revise things that were in the platform just based on the circumstances on the ground. We take that, we review it with the ELT, and here we are with you. We review it with the trustees in public for sort of an initial discussion. Here we will sort of take your broad feedback. If you remember, prior to the 25 legislature, we were in here with the actual document up on the screen, and some of you were having me rewrite sentences in real time. That comes later. That's not today. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but we don't intend for that conversation to happen today. Today's sort of high-level feedback. Can you include something about this? And I'll give you some examples of that in a minute. We will incorporate that feedback with all of the other feedback we've gotten and take that back to the new superintendent and her leadership team for sort of a, yes, let's take this back to the trustees. No, you didn't hit the mark. We then shop it to some of our major bargaining units, other stakeholders that we work with regularly, and not necessarily to give them power of the pen, but to know what kind of fights we're up against if we're not going to see eye to eye, and sometimes that happens. And then we come back here with a final product for approval or revision. Feedback we've gotten so far has been pretty really robust, and that's shown up in a couple of ways. I gave you the sort of the biggest pieces here. One is to add more focus to the way we talk about special education and special education students. We are having both practical challenges in recruiting the appropriate personnel to teach those classes. But also, I think we sort of have the ability to sort of tell a much broader story as it relates to the struggles districts have in addressing this particular group of students. They deserve access to a high-quality education like any other student that we have. And we had a legislator just today. And believe it or not, we had a team this morning at the IFC Subcommittee for Education Accountability. Mr. Mathers, Mr. Owen, and Tess from my team were there. And a legislator said something like, well, students are leaving the district to go to these charter schools, but special ed students are also leaving, right? So that's saving you money? So we have some work to do as we tell the special ed story. And so I think that that's going to be, we're going to put some energy into telling that well. Remove references to AB 49 because it passed. We don't need to talk about it anymore. And then this is a cue that I've taken from a couple of people, but I do want to give kudos to the superintendent. Add stronger language surrounding the issue of chronic absenteeism. It's been pointed out to me a couple of times over the last year that as sort of an industry, public education doesn't talk about chronic absenteeism well. And it was our own superintendent who told me how he liked to think about it, which was, oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but also you've only got like a couple of weeks, so I can only get in so much trouble. But but what he said to me is, you know, you listen to a lot of people talk about chronic absenteeism, and they say like, well, the students don't show up, what can we do? And he said he doesn't like to think about it that way. He likes to think about it like we have a product here. And the issue we have with chronic absenteeism is for whatever reason, a certain class of customer doesn't want the product anymore. And it's up to us to turn this into a product that they want. And that was actually kind of an inspiring sentence for me to hear, so thank you. And I apologize for the jokes. I know they're not your favorite, but I am who I am. And I think that we can sort of incorporate that ethos into the document a little better than we already have. And finally, this is a recommendation actually coming from your friends at Pinion Public Affairs. Historically, the document that you have is approved as a snapshot in time covering the legislative year and its following interim session. What we're recommending is realistically, you're going to see most of our platform planks unchanged. And so rather than sort of every time you approve it, sort of create it as a new document, we can change the layout between my office and Michelle's office and all that and make it pretty and always keep it new. But rather than have it be the 26-27 platform or the 24-25 platform, it's just the platform of the Washoe County School District. And then we will indicate, you know, the last time it was approved or updated by the trustees like that. And so, again, functionally, what difference does it make? I'm not sure that it makes one, but from a consistency of record-keeping standpoint, it says this is sort of where WCSD is at any given time. If, like, you know, right now we're at the 25-26 version of the platform, maybe you could say, well, we liked the old one. And, you know, most of the language, again, isn't going to change. And so it just sort of gives everybody a little more flexibility, and it allows us to sort of address this as things come up, allows you to be a little more nimble, and allows for the record to be easier to keep for the public and for yourselves. This is what's in the platform. So as it relates to your platform, I'll leave right here on the recommended and received feedback to see if you have any more. But we'll pause here before we move on to the next topics for a little bit of discussion.
And so, Mr. Shaver, just so that my colleagues and I are clear, what you're asking for really is feedback. This is sort of the first bite of the apple of this platform, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and specific to 4.02.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, colleagues, that's sort of where we're at, kind of like what we did during the budget process. I know there's a lot of thoughts and input, and we'll start with Clerk Hull.
Thank you. I know that I did already have a chance to meet with Dylan and the superintendent and Tess, so thank you for that. I want to lift up like two areas that I think are incredibly important. Competency-based learning models, it's something that has been floated and talked about, but I served on the Blue Ribbon Commission for the state in 2020. We had a lot of Zoom meetings, and literally nothing has been done. But if we're truly going to embrace modern education, we need to have the legislators understand what it means. And I think that's the next step. It's not that we're going to change NRS in this one session to remove seat time and days, but we had some calendar issues this year, and it came up, and it comes up every single year for many of our schools, and due to smoke days and snow days and all of that. And I think it's really, really important that we have some productive conversations about what competency-based learning means versus seat time and hours. I think that's incredibly important. I think it also respects our educators, because they know their kids and they know when they've accomplished something. I have a child who can take a test and do really well and could, ace himself out of a class. And I'm not saying that that's the answer, but I think we have to start those conversations. And I don't think that we really have had great conversations with our legislators to understand what competency-based learning really means. I know we've been having this conversation about full funding of our weighted categories for a long time. We have a whole commission that has presented to the legislature year after year after year. The Gwynn Center did a study on it, but that has the needle has to be moved. Too many kids have multiple categories, and it's not fair to them to not get the full weight of their needs provided by our state. And this is I know something that's happening everywhere. One thing that I would like to personally add is, and I think that this relates to the chronic absenteeism, and where I'd like to see us move the needle on this is in the performance framework for schools and for the district, that schools and districts should be not getting points knocked down for little things, but more getting points added as, like, I don't know if it's a bonus sports category or what, but for the things they're doing to engage kids. So the additional pieces. So you have a robotics team and you're a governor STEM school. Well, you're getting kids to school. There's a reason why your chronic absenteeism went down, because you're getting them to school. And so I'd like to see a conversation at some point happen where how can we bridge that gap? Schools that are doing really, really creative, amazing things, we want to share those stories. And the performance framework is a great place to share those stories, I think. So those are some areas I really wanted to elevate, but also add that little piece in that I think as it relates to chronic absenteeism is where we can move that needle in sharing the stories of what good things are happening in schools, because I'm kind of tired of hearing about all the bad, because we're doing really good things. And I'd like to elevate those stories, and I think the performance framework is a place that we can do that.
And let me just add, and then we'll go to Trustee Smith. Attachment B, this is essentially the text for the current platform, correct, Mr. Shaver?
It reflects the most recent revisions we've made based on the feedback we have, yes.
Got it. So just for my colleagues, this would be a good document to work off of if you need some guidance. Trustee Smith, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm excited to be back here. It's one of my favorite topics. So a few thoughts. I've been gathering feedback, and when people come up and they say, you know what, there's a this or a that, or we should tackle that. And so often I tell them, well, the school board doesn't actually decide those things. These are things decided on a state level. So I have a list, a short list that I wanted to share. I do want to +1 the need for weighted categories, and that's where I'll start. I see how we have special topic number 1 as special education. And I don't know if it stays that or if it broadens to special categories. If memory serves, CFO Mathers, last time we talked about this, I'm using a round number. The difference in what could have been funded to the Washoe County School District due to the unfunding of all the weighted categories was around $20 million, folks, okay? So for those following along, here's what that means. There's the 3 weighted categories and there's special education. The state only funds a child with one of those 4. The difference in the type of specialty education that the child needs, whether that's at risk or English language learners, gifted and talented, special education, we still have to provide, and I say have to, it is our honor to provide what those children need for their education, but we don't receive that additional funding for it. That difference was $20 million. Look at the budget we were just talking about. So here is my advocacy on this area. It's about, yes, special education. And again, these are just ideas talking out loud, but it's really about special categories because special education is what some of us think of, children with profound needs. It's also gifted and talented. Special education means a lot of different things. And so I would advocate for either an addition or a broadening in the special education special topic to really reflect the categories that really need that help, but not to diminish that, yes, children with certain and profound needs need additional support. So that is the first one there, and there's money associated to that, but I have a hard time arguing that a child who is at risk and then also gifted and talented should not receive both of those things. I'm a big fan of the work coming out of the Gwynn Center. I appreciate Clerk Hall bringing that up. There's a new report that just came out. Well, there's several reports that they've released. I'm really glad to see that the state has been making some gains around early childhood education, so pre-K. And a new report that just came out of the Gwynn Center is talking about literacy in K-3 because we are so focused on read by grade 3. I'd love to see a focus on reducing class sizes. Again, I know that there's money associated with that, but Nevada has the highest or one of the highest class sizes in the entire nation. We are so focused on class sizes in K-3. It's one of the only assessment types that the state requires, and yet we've got these huge class sizes. And with the Read by Grade 3 and the Gwynn report, I'd love to see a focus on at least acknowledging that our educators do better and so do our students when they are in appropriately sized classes. Same thing with mental health workers. The Gwynn Center had a great report on that. I just spoke to a group of our mental health workers, our counselors, not too long ago, and that was a big request of theirs. Please advocate for more reasonable ratios in that regard. And, okay, switching gears over to charters. There is something that the charters get to do that I find really intriguing, and that is choose their own curriculum. So we have to choose from, we are limited to choose from the curriculum that the Department of Education chooses for us, but the State Public Charter School Authority is actually the second largest educational system in the state. And that's not even including, for example, all the charter schools that we sponsor. They're not in that number. So just something to think about. Oh, I see a light on. Is there a change coming with this?
There is a change coming.
Do
from that.
tell.
Yes, there is a change. I have it on good authority. As you all know, I used to work at NDE. I have it on good authority that there will still be curriculums and textbooks that they've already like pre-screened, but we will no longer be required to use their pre-screened if we would like to. So
I'm loving
it's still
that.
in the work. So don't tell Dr. Wakefield that I'm like blowing his whole thing. But
I love
my
Dr.
understanding is that
Wakefield. Now I love him even more.
They're working on a process for that.
I love it.
That's
maybe
what-
even
yes.
more, that makes it even perhaps more appropriate to include,
Yes.
And I don't know, that could be under localized decision-making. It
Yes.
could also be in the charter section, but I've heard it, and that's totally fair. So I love that. And then there's also something, this would be more on the micro level, and I'm not suggesting this be our bill, but it's just something to be aware of. There is a current law in place that the Washoe County School District and all of the other traditional districts, the 17 districts, we are required to hold a job for a charter school educator for 3 years when they leave the Washoe County School District to go work for a Nevada state public charter school, okay? For 3 years, we have to hold that job. And they're big now, so I'm not suggesting we get it in return. I just think it should go away. So I don't think they should have to hold jobs for traditional public school educators. I don't think we should have to hold jobs for teachers that move to charter schools. I just think we should get rid of it. Like, they're good, they're big now. So that's me. So, okay, there's that. And this is like my favorite conversation in the whole world. And I'm almost done. Assessments, I wouldn't mind something in assessments that really talk about the skills our children need to be learning. I am fundamentally opposed to the ACT as the 11th grade test. I would love to see an assessment that genuinely assesses what students at this age and development are prepared for their next chapter, whatever that chapter is, because the ACT is definitively a measure of college readiness, which is not a path for everyone. And then last but not least, I am gonna meet Mr. Eppolito halfway here. Whether it is in the curriculum and technology section or in the safe and supportive workplaces, I don't think it's a terrible idea to say that safety also includes technological and data safety. I don't know what those specific things are. That's not my wheelhouse, but I hear from parents about, is our data safe? What are you keeping on the kids? I don't know what the fields are that would need to stay or go, but just putting a statement out there that when you protect students, their families, and staff, that's also their technological safety and data for, again, a broad position to be on. So those are just a few of mine. I know, I love this topic. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Trustee Westlake.
Thank you, President Mayberry. I was going to bounce off of what Trustee Smith just said, because I too, and now my phone a friend's not here, but I had asked Superintendent Ernst, I said, what is the time frame? Because all records you have to save for so many years, but then they can be destroyed. And I'm like, what is the time frame? And there really isn't one, and the state is not moving forward to set up guidelines, restrictions, and when these records can go away. Now, I understand transcripts because, you know, kids are going to this college, then they're going to that college, and they may need these transcripts but the private data, like on behaviors, things like that, I too have to agree from what we've heard with Mr. Eppolito that there should be something established where that goes away. And honestly, if the state is not moving on that, I think we should be the protectors of our children in Washoe County School District. And I think that we need to venture in to that area and say, we are going to take a stance for our children. And if the state doesn't want to do it, that should not make it where we say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. I think somebody's got to do something, because I think, oh, here's my friend.
Don't put him on the spot.
I know.
I just walked in, man.
Just had a soda.
Superintendent
Were your
Ernst.
ears burning?
So on the saving of data on our children, and we had that discussion, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think you had said that the state it's been kicked around here and there, but the state isn't moving forward to say, hey, we're going to destroy private data after so many years and not hang on to that data, that we could, as a district, move forward with that. Did I miss here?
Thank you, Trustee Westlake. So first of all, I would say that student data privacy is very important, and it is something that we have been trying to work with the state for a long time, all the way back to my previous position as Chief Accountability Officer. And unfortunately, things don't seem to move at speeds that we might want to. It's certainly something that we can elevate on the platform, and I think it's a worthwhile area to do so. And continue to push these efforts. I know we have supporters in the room and supporters elsewhere that understand the importance of it. As far as getting into all of the specifics and what have you, I think it, as a part of a platform or a part of the WCSD thinking, I think it makes a lot of sense.
So what Superintendent Ernst just said, if we could move forward with that, because that is important. I think parents would feel, families, they would feel that their child's data does have a shelf life. I mean, it's not just there to be there for 20, 30 years. There is a shelf life, a respectable time in case there is something that is needed. But I mean, just to be hanging on to all of this stuff, I just don't think that's right. So if we could try and incorporate something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shaver, I think from my perspective, I think all this is good, and we've been talking about all of this, everything I've heard for about 5 years since I've been on the board, 4.5. I think one piece that's somewhat missing here right now is some sort of revenue support. I don't know if, and I got to believe that things like resetting the sale of the property tax, the local governments are certainly behind that. It will certainly benefit school districts. I mean, I think there's some real opportunities there because none of these ideas and wants and desires and hopes and dreams are going to get done if there's no bucks. And I think that's missing on here. I don't know how you work that into a separate category, new revenue sources. Again, I'm talking high level. Go ahead.
So when we went through the drafting process in 2024 in preparation for the 25 legislature, that did come up. And the board was composed differently at the time, and there was not appetite to include that in the platform at that time. Now the board changes, people elect new boards and all of that. And so we can certainly come back with language like that, but it has been considered previously, specifically, if I remember correctly, as to the reset of property tax at point of sale. So if you want high level, find the money somewhere, that's sort of one bucket that can go in, or here are some suggestions we have, that's another bucket we can go in. But we will come back with some language like that for you to have the conversation, for sure.
Yeah, I just think it's beneficial for this organization to have a seat at the table during a legislative hearing when it comes to those kinds of topics. Because what's good for, some of these local agencies is good for school districts across the state as well. And I think that's a missing piece. And I appreciate your comment about the makeup of the board. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just have one more, and this might come up, might align a little bit better when we talk about the invest document, but I think it also aligns with the conversation we had about NDE approving specific curriculums. I think one area that I would like to see, and I see in the invest document that it's referred to as refining SB 460, and I think certainly based on our conversation at the last board meeting, we had a really, really robust conversation, and I don't think in the long run any of us are walking away feeling like super great about all the iReady stuff. It has to do with student data, it has to do with testing, And I think a real miss in 460 was defining that that is the only test that they will reimburse for, because I have some concerns about, similarly to them saying, you can only use this textbook. That really prevents a school district from making the best choice for themselves. And I think that's a refinement that absolutely needs to be discussed. There should not be the state of Nevada saying you should use this provider. That feels like a real miss, and honestly, it feels like it's leaning towards not local control. So I know refining 460 is coming up in the invest document, but I did want to elevate that it does make it feel like school districts don't have a choice but to use iReady as their testing provider for Read by 3. So I think that's something that I continue to really mull over and think about, and have some really big concerns about how 460 defined that.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Good. Trustee Nicolette.
Thank you. I'm a little speechless just because everything my colleagues have said is really spot on to what could help not only Washoe County School District, but our school districts throughout the state. And probably ultimately charter schools, because they're going to get in on stuff. And that's, kiddos are our kiddos, and every one of them is our responsibility. Having said that, we have 2 bill draft requests that we could submit. That's correct? 1. So this is why I'm feeling like really overwhelmed, because every single idea in my mind has merit. And so tell me, Dylan, how are we going to get to that 1 bill draft and then ultimately identify our champions? Just tell us about the process.
Thank you so much for the question, and that does pop up later in this presentation, and if the president is okay with it, I can just skip to the BDR discussion now, leaving invest for last.
Sure. Please do. Do you have any other follow-ups, Trustee Nicolette, or can we? Okay, let's move forward. Thank you.
All right, there you go. Here again, student artwork. They had to design a shoe off after candy. I don't know. It's very creative. This is the part of the presentation where I'm going to remind you, the Washoe County School District does get its own bill draft. You get 1. Last session, we got a second bite at the apple through a friendly legislator who supported our cause. And we were ultimately mostly successful in accomplishing what WCSD was looking for in that. So we had 2 bills. This is that we wanted. We got 2 bills out of the legislative session. I will say, much like when you are in investment, please note that statements about past performance do not guarantee future results. There are many ways for a bill to die in the legislative process, but only one way for a bill to pass. So what you asked was sort of a process question, so I'll get into the process, and then we'll talk more about what other options are available to us at the time. So this process always starts the same way, with a mass solicitation across the district, not just ELT, but the members of ELT go down into their own departments and come back with conversations. I wanted to really express some gratitude here, because at this point, 2 years ago, I believe we had 5 suggestions. And the superintendent and I sat down. He said, why don't you do some research over here? Why don't you look at this one? Why don't you look at that one? This year, to date, we have 27 proposals from across the district. And so your question is a very good one. How do we find which one gets the golden ticket? And how do we find that? So the first thing that me and my team have done is we've sort of separated them into issue areas, and from there we try and see where is there commonality, so that some of the ideas and recommendations can be merged into the same piece of legislation. I don't think that it would be advisable to show up, for example, with the WCSD omnibus bill to reform all education in the state. I think that would probably be DOA. But I do think that if we can find sort of key areas where we have the right people to engage and sort of some ideas that we can build some momentum around, we really can come as close as possible to maximizing those odds like we did in 2025 and coming out with something positive for you. So our 27 proposals, they fall into 6 key areas. That is a lot of homework for me and my team to do, and a lot of time from your executives in the district to try and find sort of just the right way to package these and put them together. Like I said, that's the process we're in right now. And when we have, I would say probably mid to late July, based on conversations we've had here, the direction you're putting in the platform, we'll sit down with the new superintendent and her team as she sees fit to kind of prioritize them and then what's left, like what ideas are left, and then bring those back to you for a conversation. If I remember 2025 correctly, we came back with 3 ideas and you picked one. You said do the Excellence in Every Hire Act, which from there we were off to the races. All of that has to wrap up before the 1st of September. And that is our due date for this particular piece of paperwork. And so we've sort of got a process in place. It is not just for the sake of timeliness. It is not a process that spends a lot of time in this room until the end when sort of a lot of the homework and the legwork has been done. But again, as you listening to you discuss the platform and things like that, we can get a good sense of what your priorities are, and we'll sort them from there. So I even gave you a timeline, see? So right now, we're sort of in the research and refining. We will provide recommendations to the new superintendent. We will iterate on the ideas sort of we have coming out of everybody. What does superintendent, what aligns with their vision? What do they think, your expectations are? And we'll come back in August for a board vote. That is for the one BDR that the Washoe County School District gets. Now, as you saw in 2025, there was a friendly legislator who, seized on an idea based on conversations I believe she had with a couple of you prior to the legislative session starting, and called us and said, hey, I want to work on this. How can we make it happen? We turned around language almost immediately, and we were going very well from there. So we have that option at our disposal as well. Lawmakers get a lot of drafts and they get a lot of requests, but there are a number that sort of want to remain in an education issue area. So if appropriately directed and if the opportunity comes up, then we would sort of seize on those things and be able to secure some other language. The other thing we do is, there are 17 school districts and a number of unions and advocacy groups and things like that at the legislature that have their own bills that where a couple of things can happen. One, it can become a vehicle for a similar topic. We've done this before, achieving policy via amendment, or where maybe they've got the same idea as us. And most of our work at the legislature, believe it or not, is not getting individual bills passed, it's fixing a bunch of broken ones. And so that does create the opportunity for us to influence policy at that level as well. That's a long way to say. There is sort of a winnowing process to ensure that the best ideas bubble off the top, that we're capturing your feedback, but don't lock in too much on just the one bill.
Thank you. And that's how I remember the process. And I think what's happening, and I'll just speak for me, is the more you do this, the more questions you have, because maybe the less you understand as you get into the deeper aspects of it. So I'm thinking about timing in this particular slide right here. We don't meet till the end of July. You've got in there RECS, not sure what the recommendations to new superintendent. The new superintendent remains to be seen because negotiations starts July 8th when we're off. And I'm worried about this timing. And the reason I'm worried is because I think this discussion has been really important to hear from my colleagues who we each come from a different frame, and together we make a whole, if you will. And I don't see a lot of opportunity for us to continue discussions. Having said that, I recognize that anything we do to move forward, trustees don't make the work happen, that it's all the employees behind the scenes, students, families. But I would like to have more discussion, so, because I think it's very valuable in getting to where we need to be to one draft bill.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's a good reminder, it's a good segue that Clerk Hall is our designated legislative representative for this body. And so I certainly reach out to her as well, have conversations, provide input. You're right. I mean, it's a short timeline for sure. And, I think we put a lot of energy into BDRs. I think when in reality, there's always another bite of the apple or two or three with the relationships that you have, that we have with other legislators, getting language in other particular bills. So, our single BDR is not the ends all for us. So I think that's important, as you pointed out in your remarks. Any other comments, questions, suggestions? Okay, I'm going to.
There's one more
please
section
Oh,
here.
okay.
And that is the Invest platform, and I believe
I
this is
was
on
waiting
your
when we were going to talk about that. Okay.
agenda as 4.01. So, as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, the NAS platform is typically something that shows up on a consent item. I went back and watched a couple. I don't think I've seen it polled for broader discussion, and you vote on it and move on your way. It is the sort of platform crafted by the Nevada Association of School Superintendents. That's all 17 of the county superintendents, and then the superintendent of the SPCSA also participates from time to time. Going into this interim, the superintendent directed me and the opinion team to look at ways to refine the NAS platform and its process. Acknowledging, I think, that, technically Washoe County would be the third largest school district in the state now behind the SPCSA, or maybe we're roughly the same size. That the Clark County School District is, of course, orders of magnitude larger. And then the other districts are really drastically smaller in size. WCSD is uniquely situated. There are a handful of representatives who represent this community, but realistically, most of the legislature, 2/3 of the legislature, comes from one community. And so it creates sort of a series of challenges where really at the end of the day, WCSD can't go it alone. And I believe it was right after Trustee Woodley was appointed to this board where he asked me point blank, sitting at this different table at the time, and said, how do we leverage our partners in this space to make sure we're all moving in the same direction? And the answer to that over time has become the Invest document. There are just areas that affect more or less every school district in exactly the same way. And WCSD simply does not have the resources to chase down every single great idea in public education. So that combined with a couple of troubling things from the 2025 legislative session where the superintendents and the school boards, the people running districts across this state, the foremost professionals, aren't often the ones driving policy. And part of the reason for that, when the superintendent and I sat down to sort of talk through this invest process, is, well, it wasn't really clear what we wanted out of the legislature. And so in working with the 17 other state superintendents to sort of reformat the NAS platform away from being a reactive document or a pie-in-the-sky sort of series of wouldn't it be nice if education were this, we work to turn it into sort of what specifically are the superintendents here to do. And I think you've seen us try and do this with the WCSD platform, and we're just trying to take some of that same ethos and that same energy to NAS. None of this, and I don't want to step on any toes, but this is what the other superintendents get for not hiring Pinion Public Affairs. None of this would have happened without Joe Ernst. None of it. You know, the energy that he put into it and that he wanted us to pour into it, you know, there is no part of Team Pinion that was itching to spend more time in meetings. But he flagged it as important. He wanted us to work on it, and he didn't just tell us to do it. He worked with us on it to get to where we are today. So in having long conversations with superintendents across the state, they coalesced around 4 key issues that they wanted to build their platform around. 1, funding stability. Now, this is specific to, as it relates to enrollment declines. As you know, the money follows the students. The students are wherever, the money disappears. And, you know, there are a lot of different ways to address that, and I don't know that there's really coalescence around any one of those right now, but that stability, you know, they're assigning more things to school districts, they're more work to school districts, they are sending money out the doors for the school districts, and then they have created their own performance framework to then beat school districts up for not achieving those goals with these now lessened resources. And so I think that there was a lot of great conversation around that, so they included it. You know, let's find a fix for this. Let's put energy into it. The second would be SB 460 reform. That's really the gentlest language, I think. That there wasn't a ton of love for SB 460 among the superintendents. Dr. Wakefield has heard all of this said directly to his face, so I don't feel like I'm revealing any secrets by saying that. But there are areas for mandatory state interventions which just as a matter of public policy are unrealistic. States can take over schools now. They don't. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the interest. They have created what you said, essentially a report card that emphasizes penalizing districts for not doing the right things rather than rewarding them for moving in the right direction. And so I think that there was a lot of excitement around reforming SB 460. Similarly, we are sort of coming up against a cliff in Read by 3, which you brought up earlier, where we are facing a situation where, as I understand it, we will have to hold kids back in the 3rd grade. That will be, in a way that will be disastrous for them. It will be administratively untenable to the organization, and it will be really unfair to our teachers who are going to have sort of, to do Read by 3 and also have class size caps for the 3rd grade, create sort of a policy, we'd call that a policy misalignment coming out of the legislature. And so it's going to be disastrous, it seems, so there's energy in there. And then 3rd, right now, that there has been sort of movement in universal pre-K. It's all done in a grant program that, if you were to look at sort of its first year of operation, paid something like $700,000 per pre-K seat, which, I mean, Pinion doesn't have any express expertise in offering pre-K, but for $700,000 a seat, I'll learn. But that is to say, creating sort of grant programs over and over again that don't always award the same thing, or they are sort of in a rush to spend it by the fiscal year, so they're not really building up for long-term solutions. It does not seem like it's going to achieve the goal of ever getting to universal pre-K. So coming out of the soups, it's let's find stable funding for this. Let's sort of put it in the right place. To Trustee Mayberry's point, right? All of this money has to come from somewhere, and there is an associated revenue discussion to be had. But on its face, these were sort of what the superintendents identified as their key areas of pursuit. You have the NAS document in front of you. You also have a resolution asking for your endorsement of the NAS platform. The same resolution has been offered by NAS to all 17 school districts. I believe we're the first up, so you guys can kill it right here. But what does this do? Why are we doing it this way? Well, one, these things do take a lot of energy, and these are not small projects. And part of the superintendents adopting these is then they have to go back to their boards and say, hey, I'm going to spend some time on this. And we expect that of all 17 school districts to the extent that they're able. And so by supporting this platform, you're saying, all right, Superintendent Ernst, Superintendent McMaster, we're with you on this. We have your back. Go and pursue this. And it's okay for the team to spend time, energy, resources on that. The other reason, of course, is the symbolism behind it, right? It's great to show up to the legislature with unanimity across the school districts across the state. We've always been able to do that. And then finally, and this gets to Trustee Nicolette's questions from what feels like 7 hours ago, because I've just been talking at you guys way too much. I apologize. Every small district gets one bill draft request. Most of them don't use it. They simply don't have the resources.
Right.
And this is with all due respect to our colleagues from across the state, but you have, working superintendents who are performing like day-to-day functions for their school districts because they're just that small. So this is not something where they would ordinarily have the bandwidth. Well, if we can get all aligned around these principles, suddenly, we show up with a bill like this, and maybe we have that superintendent running point on it, but then, myself, the folks at Clark County, whoever can provide additional support and jump in there to make it happen. And it just allows everybody to be a little more proactive. This is the first time that we've really gone through this exercise with NAS. I suspect by already praising Superintendent Ernst so much, I'll be in trouble with some of our colleagues. But this is where we're at right now. This is what we're asking for today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Yeah, I got a couple lights on. I'll go with clerk call and then Trustee Nicolette.
One thing that I wanted to ask, I have a question and a couple of plus ones for some areas in this. So the pre-K one, a lot of the things we've heard specifically at the NASB meetings, but also I know this is a problem. I think that the move away from the grants into stable funding could potentially help this, but that most of the funding for pre-K seats has really been towards the special education pre-K seats, but then the districts have to use their general fund because it's also required that you have the typical peers in those special education pre-K programs, but that's not funded. So I don't see that really called out in the invest document, but it's also because it's a, quick bullet points, but has that been part of the conversation? Because I know at the NASB meetings it has been, that the universal pre-K funding would obviously include typical peers, not just special education students.
That specific topic has come up. The whole process for the way those grant monies have been handed out, like, it was passed pretty clearly as pre-K funding grants, and most of the money does not actually go to pre-K seats, which is a detail buried in your question, in that when you say the money that does go to pre-K seats, most of it actually doesn't. It goes
Okay.
into sort of other services. And so, but to your point, yes, that has come up in context of that broader conversation
Okay.
about the money really not always going to pre-K.
And I guess my broader question is, are there legislators aware that the strings that have come along with that pre-K funding are really actually a huge barrier, not only for districts like ours and Clark that have other resources, but truly for all 17 districts to be able to provide that, and you don't have to like call anybody out. I'm just curious if there's actual conversation happening amongst the legislators that, like, yeah, we haven't been able to fix it, but we are aware that it just kind of like the funding of, you know, the categories. Like, I think most of them are very aware. They just don't feel like they have a solution
Right.
because there just isn't funding. So it's okay if you don't want to call anybody out. So I don't want to.
I will say that any legislative process is a push and pull between
Yeah.
many interests, and
Okay.
there are some who agree with the statement you just made.
Okay. That's great. I want to call out one piece of the refining 460 in addition to the one I already called out, but I love the including science of reading and really just the science of learning in teacher preparation programs. I love that inclusion, and it's so important that that our new teachers come prepared and don't start off feeling totally overwhelmed and like, I just finished school and now I need to learn a whole new thing. I love that. And so I just wanted to give that an extra +1. And I think the final thing I really, really want to call out is the fiscal impact and the funding stability. When we've entered into contracts with employees for the whole year, losing funding partway through the year is so, it impacts every district drastically, but in these very precarious times where we don't have increases to the inflation level, to lose that funding, it's awful for us, it's awful for our really small districts. I know I've had several conversations with our Douglas County and our Nye County, colleagues, and it's devastating for all of us. And so I just want to also +1, the funding stability could not be more important for our districts, especially in these times. So I appreciate this document, and I think it's kudos to Superintendent Ernst and Pinion, as well as all of the superintendents for putting this out there, because it's a little scary to put it out there sometimes and to say, this is what we deserve and this is what we need to make happen. And so, congrats to NAS for putting this together, because it's really calling out what our state needs to do, because our kids deserve it. Bottom line, our kids deserve this. So, thank you.
And Invest, thank you finally to our 17 school district superintendents for, I guess, seeing that coming together makes us much stronger than trying to be apart and fight our fights, because that's how we're going to move forward to that partnership formation. Boy, we really need higher ed in this, because there are components of teacher preparation programs that are now thrust upon school districts that are very costly, very time-consuming, very difficult for new teachers to really find their place. And, I just graduated, I thought I was ready, which isn't naive, but I think that's a good spirit. I thought I was ready. And our partners in higher education, we need to work more collaboratively with them. To pre-K, we've been talking about universal pre-K for 25 years. every gray hair I have is a testimony to that, because it's just gotten so frustrating. And I personally, and tell me how something like this would work. I don't believe universal pre-K can ever be a reality in the state of Nevada until we address NRS 387. Because until we make K, pre-K 12, I'd even say a 13th capstone year, but that's a different discussion. Until we make the K pre-K, I think it's going to be shoved in the back room year after year after year. And so I'm not sure how we go about that. And before I ask you to help us understand, I serve as the president-elect for the Nevada School Board Association, and I hope I'm not stepping out of line, but you know, our 105 trustees are members of our 17 school districts, from our 17 school districts. And we have joint meetings, and I think, and we also, as you know, I know you know this, Tom Clark Solution, he's our public policy guru. I think I know we need to get together, and we need to have these conversations, because now we got our superintendents, and now you got your trustees from our 17 school districts, and we will be a very powerful voice if we have a collaborative approach to what we know we need, and we request it together. I don't think we're always going to agree. Every school district's different, but I know there's some commonalities, and I think that let us help you, Nevada Association of School Boards, in being an informant and a champion as well. And to the NRS, how the hell do you change an NRS?
Okay. So, that is a really excellent question, and there's a couple of things that you rightfully pointed out in asking it that I want to reiterate as I answer your question. It's easy to put in the sort of back corner because it's incredibly expensive. If the money's there, the rest of the pieces will fall into place. They'll make sure it does. But in Nevada, the way we fund government in this state, which especially at the local level, especially with our only jurisdiction in the 50 United States that depreciates real property as if it were your car, the opportunity for an infusion like that is rare. To my mind, the way you get it done is you have to do little pieces at a time. We have to sort of modernize the entire body of law, like you say, go into 387 from its ground up, and do it similarly to like when they rolled out full-day kindergarten. It wasn't in every school when they first did it. But decide where it has to be and put it there. Do it incrementally and find ways to sort of over time to get there. Now, you asked me sort of a question of opinion, and as a professional, how I would tackle a project like that. I will remind everybody, I'm certainly not the governor of this state, nor do I hold any other elective office to do that. And so, what that we lived in a world where people just listened to Dylan and then went and did the thing, my rates would be way higher. But I think philosophically at its core, we have to find ways to achieve this incrementally. And over time, you know, maybe this band of service gets built into the base budget. And then in the next biennium, you add to it a little bit, and then you add to it a little bit. And over time, you're there, which is, as a matter of public policy, a remarkably unsatisfying way to do it. But I do not believe that the political dynamics along with the economic dynamics in this state will ever allow for the legislature to just snap its fingers and say, we did universal pre-K, everybody. It's just too big an expense for them to take on all at once. I hope I'm wrong. I hope somebody is, Speaker Marzola, Speaker Designate Marzola, if you're listening to this and you think I'm going to prove Dylan Shaver wrong, great. But realistically, It just, if that's what we're waiting for, we're going to be waiting a very long time. To the other part of your question then, is to, again, as we talk about the feasibility of things like this, the only thing that will get us further away from how important this is if we stop talking about it. Again, the legislature is, a ton of diverse interests acting sort of for various political and policy reasons that are motivated by, 63 different perspectives in the legislature and the governor and the governor's agency heads and all of that. The worst thing we can do is to allow the space we occupy to get filled by something else. And this happens all the time, particularly with government agencies like school districts that are often feel like they're the whipping post of the legislature. Well, we came with this idea last year, the legislature didn't like it, so we're going to try a different thing. Okay, you can do that, but you've essentially then eliminated any institutional memory about the first thing you were talking about. And so for some of these big issues, and the superintendent and I have this conversation a lot, and again, it's deeply unsatisfying because we want to all show up at the 27 legislature and pass the bill that fixes it all. It's just not the way this state is structured. And so what we instead do is we take the wins where we can and keep our focus on the thing of what this board wants is saying, go fight for universal pre-K tooth and nail. And, we spend 5 sessions in a row making a little bit of progress. Well, after those 10 years, I think you'll be very happy with where you are. But after the first or second year, it's probably not going to feel very fulfilling. And that was...
Thank you for your honesty, I think.
And that was Uplifting Schoolhouse Rock from Dylan. Is there any other questions I can answer?
Yeah, Trustee Nicola, thanks for reminding us that you have your role on the Nevada Association of School Boards. I think that's going to help this body as well and our state. So thank you for your service. Any other comments? Before we're going to take 4.01 and 4.02 separately, public comment and a vote. But before I do that, any further comments? Okay, let's go to item 4.01. Do we have any public comment for 4.01?
I have no cards for 4.01.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'm looking for a motion to approve 4.01.
I'm ready, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think this is a great platform. I move that the Board of Trustees adopts Washoe County School District Board Resolution 26-004.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Woodley. With the motion to approve item 4.01 with a second from Clerk Hall, all in favor? We'll see no further discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 4.02. Gigi, do we have any public comment for item 4.02?
Jenny DeMonte.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I have my broken wing, and I'm a little klutzy, so be patient with me. I'm Jenny DeMonte. I am here from Indivisible, Northern Nevada. I lead our Eyes on the Washoe County School District group, and I have I've got a laundry list written in my crabbed handwriting these days. I just heard about a great budget effort. Kudos, because this is the kind of thing that is rarely accomplished by a school board, to deal with $26 million over 2 years. That's insane. Okay. So let's go now to a fact. I'm going to kind of bounce around, but I'm getting to a point. Enrollment is down. It's down across the nation. It's a demographic cliff. We're all going to fall off it. Higher ed is next because this is the peak year for high school graduation, so you will watch colleges and universities close in droves over the next 10 years. Nothing you can do about it. Okay, so what can we do? We need money. I mean, I have been banging this drum for the whole 6 months I've been at this, and I used to live in New Jersey. Nevada school funding is archaic. Change it. Depreciation. What? That's insane. That is the most insane. Okay, so if you think education's expensive, try ignorance. Let's start there. I have worked as a technical assistant, meaning I would go to different states and help them do things like design funding. I specialized in teacher preparation. So I was in Texas, I was in New Jersey, I've been in Michigan, I've been in Connecticut and Rhode Island, and talked to them about all these different topics. Surprisingly, Texas was one of the most progressive. But other states don't always do it great. Wouldn't recommend New Jersey's funding system. Read by 3, I did my dissertation on early literacy, so I get it completely. Keep at it. And I also specialize in teacher prep. But the bottom line, I love this. I love this. I feel like Trustee Smith and I could bond over this in some bar somewhere. I just want to remind you, and you've said this before, we are in the human improvement business. It ain't cheap. It's not easy. Keep at it. Let me know how I can help. Also, Indivisible, we'll be there.
Thank you, Dr. DeMonte.
John Eppolito.
John Eppolito, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Infinite Campus, that would be the place to start with the data and the non-educational data. Discipline, minor discipline, multi-tiered system of support, medical, counseling, and psychiatric. That's the stuff that could impact the future of our kids that Infinite Campus stores forever. We don't know who's going to end up with it. Is it going to be our government? Is it going to be a foreign government? Is it going to be private equity? Is it going to be big tech? Is it going to be somebody else? Infinite Campus is going to have it forever. They're going to sell that company eventually. That's what they all do. The platform, the mental health aspect of the platform, the book that I just mentioned, The Anxious Generation, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental health. Again, if we're not part of the solution, we're part of the problem. And this is all about screens, social media, and phones, and a little bit on educational software, not too much. The other thing was the slide from last week, Chris's presentation, the lawsuit against Canvas Curriculum Associates. The lawsuit, parents claim that student data is being shared with third parties without direct parental consent beyond what is necessary for educational purposes. I've got news for them. Almost all the vendors do that. And what they do is they don't sell it, they share it. They share it with their partners. So Curriculum Associates' response was, we do not sell student data, they don't. We don't use it for advertising, they probably don't, or build commercial profiles. That's probably all true, but they share it with their vendors and they create student profiles, and we don't know how those profiles are going to affect the future of our kids. The richest ones got sold to the Chinese with Edmodo, remember? The next one, Scandinavian countries. I'd be willing to bet today the Scandinavian countries that drop screens in elementary schools, they will see improvement in many categories in a short amount of time, especially with the youngest students. During that time, Nevada, in my opinion, will continue to overuse screens in elementary education. Please consider sponsoring a low-tech elementary school in this district. We have IB, we have AP. Why can't we have a low-tech elementary school where kids can learn the way all the dot-com, not all, many of the dot-com executives send their kids to? Their kids don't use all this garbage. It's stuff like the Waldorf school. Please considering sponsoring one of those, and we need your help in Carson City no matter what. Dylan, I'll see you there.
The board received an email from Kaylin Evans.
Okay. Thank you. Did you get what you need today?
I believe so. Thank you for the robust discussion and for the opportunity to be here to work with you. We will be back, well, when they tell me to come back. No, but there will be opportunities for the board to weigh in, again, going forward. But I feel like we've gotten a lot of great stuff here that we can go in and iterate on the platform, and it will inform the discussion we have around bill drafts as well. So thank you for that. And of course, and I say this every time I present, me and my team are accessible to you individually. If you're calling me to talk about district stuff, we do notify the superintendent that you reached out and what the conversation was. But just keep that in mind. But you are always welcome to reach out. You had a question, you heard a rumor, or you had an idea for something we could be doing. We want to make sure that we are available to you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. If there's no further questions, I'm willing to entertain a motion for item 4.02. We got, okay. Clerk call?
Good, okay. If somebody, okay.
Go ahead, make the motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees directs the superintendent to update the Washoe County School District legislative platform as discussed.
Second.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Clerk Hall and a second by Trustee Smith. There were a couple lights on over here. I apologize. Any further discussions, questions? We good? Okay. All right, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your time today, Mr. Shaver. All right, and we are moving to our reports, student representative report. Our student representative had a commitment she had to leave a little bit early for. So we'll move on to item 5.02. These are our board reports. Trustee Smith, could I ask you to kick us off?
Sure thing, President Mayberry. If I could wait before my minutes start until JJ gets the first one up.
No worries.
All right, thank you. So lots of fun stuff in the past couple weeks. I'll start off, it's not this picture, but I attended the ribbon cutting event for the Neal Road Community Health Alliance location. I joined there by Deputy McMaster and Trustees Nicolette and Westlake. That was really amazing to see that going up in my own District D. The picture that you have here is the groundbreaking at Echo Loader Elementary School, which was so very fun. The most important kids, or the most important attendees are there at the top. And then also really pleased to see Vice Mayor Miguel Martinez there with a little jump in by Dr. Nicolette. And then we've got the video, JJ, if we could show that, because I am in love with their Spirit Squad. Look at the Spirit Squad. I just thought that they were so fun. I had a great time and really proud to see another school going up. I attended the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Mini-Conference, where more than 50 educators received recognition for their commitment and participation in the program. I was joined in that with Trustees Nicolette and Phoenix, who also stayed and awarded those awards as well. I participated in Career Day at my son's school, and I talked all about being a school board trustee with a bunch of fifth graders, and it was actually really, really cool. The next picture that you see right here is my husband and I attended the Yachtly Rock concert at the GSR in support of communities and schools. Saw lots and lots of WCSD educators there, and who knew we love yacht rock so much? We totally love yacht rock, and I highly recommend dressing up when you go to one of their concerts. I attended the event at North Valley's High School honoring the Guillemot Foundation and their $1.3 million donation to grow aviation education. I attended the SWOPE GT Magnet 8th grade college night, which was really amazing to hear from those kids and their future dreams heading into high school and beyond. I met with the secondary academics team, Nicole Johnson, Chief Hackbush, and Trustee Westlake. Had a wonderful conversation with Nicole, who's new in that role. Attended a Huffacre PTA meeting. Attended the Women of Achievement Luncheon. Congratulations to our own Chief General Counsel on being named a Woman of Achievement. And then I was a panelist reviewer for the Innovative Leadership Institute, which passed along some really amazing ideas. So these are educators looking to move up in their leadership, and some of them had they all had great ideas, but some of them had some really good ideas, and the superintendent was very generous with his interest in some of those as well, too, with connecting those innovative educators with some of our executive staff. And last but not least, I attended the Save Our Schools 10th anniversary celebration, honoring the passage of WC1 and honoring Debbie Smith herself, which was passed by a vote of 57% in our community. Promises made, promises kept always. Thank you so much.
Well, I like to call this the clapping and cheering season because that's what I feel like I'm doing everywhere I go, and it's absolutely fabulous. Sarah Winnemucca had a kindergarten open house, and I got to tell you, looking at those little kindergartners, almost kindergartners and their families, I think the adults had more fun, by the way, with all the games and the stickers, and it was just they did a wonderful job. And then to the North Valleys High School, the student provided a drone presentation, and I tell you, the career and tech ed pathways that we are beginning to really expand on, we've always had them, but we're really expanding on them. And thank you for Guillemont Foundation, because we're going to be able to grow these programs in the North Valley schools. It's going to be a vertical approach. And Principal UN at Verdi Elementary School, I went to go visit him and wish him the best of luck and happiness on his new chapter as he retires as principal. He's just a wonderful, wonderful human being, and I'm going to miss visiting him. And I look forward to knowing the new principal. Had the pleasure of attending the Debbie Smith Career and Technical Academy. They call it the Mavericks Commitment to Service Projects. You know, and I'm going to lump in here with Huntsberger and Aaron Grossman, the 5th grade teacher, and their community projects, sustainability projects, and then our WCSD Night of Excellence for Career and Technical Education and Career and Technical Student Organizations. The projects that our teachers are guiding our students to undertake, whether it's for a week or whether it's an entire semester, our kiddos are really, they're learning more than just reading and writing and arithmetic and social emotional learning. They're really learning how to think about what's going on in the world around them and how they impact the world now and how they can impact it in the future. And had the same experience at Truckee Meadows Community College High School and their senior portfolio presentations. I will just say lovingly that there are problems we have to solve, and I feel very confident and hopeful in our students being able to identify those issues and find solutions. And that was one thing I noticed throughout the presentations was students were identifying problems and they shared solutions. So they weren't just complaining about something's wrong, they figured out how to fix it, and that was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to, I think some of you attended Reno and Washoe County Commission Council meetings earlier this month. I was at the Sparks City Council. It was presented the Teacher Appreciation Month on behalf of this body and all our teachers, which I appreciate, and our staff for that matter. I attended the groundbreaking event at Echo Loader as well, and enjoyed our SOS 10th anniversary reunion at Debbie Smith, very fitting place to hold a reflection of 10 years of WC1. Again, shout out to the Guillemont Foundation for their additional $1+ million grant for drone education. It was a great event at North Valleys High School, and had a chance to fly a drone myself for a little bit. Had a great opportunity to spend time at DeMonte Ranch for a musical performance, and I accompanied Trustee Phoenix and Trustee Nicollet at TMCC High School for their exit interviews, and enjoyed the presentation and the opportunity to listen to a student who was actually looking to become a pilot, to go into aviation. So it was a real pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I too attended the inaugural Mavericks Commitment to Service. I want to give kudos to Richard Clark. He invited us and put it together. Really appreciated that, and I felt the same way. It was really amazing to see the kids put things together and solutions and identify what problems they had, and even to the point where some of them admitted when they didn't come through with their portion of the assignment. So that was good to see that integrity and accountability. I also had a great opportunity attending the Collegiate Academy graduation ceremony at UNR for our dual credit programs within the district. And it was a privilege to sit with Deputy Superintendent McMaster and to learn that she was involved with the creation of the dual credit program with the UNR. So thank you for that, Tiffany. That was awesome. I also want to give a shout out to Mario Fitzpatrick from McQueen High School. He invited me to participate in Innovative Leadership Institute, where we got to see teachers identify issues and resolutions and ways to address things in their classrooms and throughout the district. I think this is actually a really good opportunity even for our leadership staff to see some of their ideas, you know? Because some of them, I walked away thinking, oh, that would be a great idea. And some were cost neutral. So that was even better. I also had the opportunity to attend the Lemelson Elementary to help, along with my fellow trustee Nicolette, to help cover lunch duty so the teachers can have lunch together. And I want to give a congrats to TMCC High School for their Nevada Blue Ribbon recognition by the state. That was great to see for them being such a high-performing school within the state. Thank you.
Okay. This is at the Golden Bears, the vertical welcome to Sparks Middle School. And they welcomed in the fifth graders that will be joining their community next year as sixth graders. And they just had the best time. And the one thing that really stood out to me was the amazing questions. Here's families and students. The amazing questions that our fifth graders had to ask of Principal Sarah. And it was very insightful, and they're really showing an interest of being part of that community. I also was at the ribbon cutting for the addition to the Community Health Alliance. I thought that was amazing. They're serving low income and the most needy. There's also a van that travels to provide medical and dental care. This right here is a picture of Career Day, and I missed Principal Heather going up in the boom. Principal Heather Curtis, she went up like 60 feet in the air. I wouldn't have been caught dead doing that. But I just missed it. Representing the Career Day there at Lincoln Park Elementary was Reno Fire. This was a little student putting on one of the detective unit's vest. And there was also NV Energy there. I mean, it just a sheriff department, amazing partners showing up. This was an amazing evening that a student, she's in the nursing program, Lily, and she invited me there. She was receiving an award. They not just awarded at Debbie Smith CTE, they didn't just award seniors. They picked outstanding students in every department, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. And Lily was one of the recipients. There's my Lily in the nursing program. And I couldn't be prouder of her, the other students that received awards. At Alice Maxwell Elementary School, shout out to Principal Colleen Winter there, invited me to the multicultural night, and all of the whole one side of the room was all the different flags. It was amazing. And then my friend here was one of the teachers that her students presented, and Principal Colleen Winter. And then my childhood friend, Lori Stock, it was Mulini, and she's Italian. You'll never guess what her class made. It was homemade pasta noodles. So very, very fun.
Alrighty, so I went to Hidden Valley and I met with Principal Amy Hicks. And she gave me a tour of the campus, and it was good to learn a little bit about her, and how she got here. A longtime educator, comes from a legacy of educators. So just spend that time to get to know her a little bit. I also participated in the parent-teacher home visit. We stayed for the awards, and I think that was the best part of it all. You listen in on that, but to give them the awards and give them kudos and everything right there. Be interested to see how the data shows and how much it really does affect and improve in education there. So those home visits there. Also, I went to the Debbie Smith CT Academy, and again, we already had Richard Clark, who did a good job there in getting those students involved there. And then I went to the Disney performance of The Lion King at Alice Taylor Elementary School. And I'd like to recognize Principal Kate and Sylvia Wilson and staff who put this on. I was impressed because every one of those students knew their lines heart by heart. I mean, they had it down to the T, and they were totally getting into it. So it was awesome to see. I also went to Truckee Meadows Community College Veterans Upward Bound. So if you're not familiar with that program, it's there for veterans who get out of the service and a place to start their higher education. And not only that, but for the workforce, if there's vocational opportunities for them. So I had a chance to do that there. And then lastly, TMCC High School, like a lot of you already alluded to, just to be a part of that process. So to kind of learn from the students and the staff and how things work. And I believe this is going on its 10th year. I think they've been doing it now. So hopefully I'll get back next year and participate. But all in all, in addition to work, I was able to get out there like everybody else. So thanks.
Thank you all. Item 5.03 is our superintendent report.
Thank you, President Mayberry. First, thanks for all these shout outs to all the schools. It's amazing to see all the great work that is occurring. And, you are all attending these events firsthand, seeing it. And it's just a great opportunity to highlight all the good things that are happening in our school district. I won't repeat a lot of the ones that have been mentioned. Two that haven't. There was a 20th anniversary for Jesse Hall. Really was a great event. They had students that came back, some of the original students, and did videos for the younger students on where they were at in their lives. We had newscasters, we had doctors, and it was really kind of an uplifting something of seeing where our kids start and then where they're at as adults. So that was a really nice event. The other thing I'll mention is the RCOP program. Dr. Call and the Redfield Foundation remain incredibly generous to Washoe County School District. And we just continue to expand field trip opportunities for our students. So while we do always focus on academics and so many other things, we also support nearly 20 schools with additional field trip opportunities. RCOP stands for the Redfield Community Outreach Program. And so we're taking our students and making sure that they get out into the community to see all that there is in the Truckee Meadows. So a couple of great programs, just those were the things that hadn't been mentioned so far that I thought I'd share.
Thank you, Superintendent Ernst. And we'll move on to item 6.01. This is our closing public comment.
The board received emails from Jessica Gorin, Jackson Koch, and Amaris McKinney.
Okay, thank you, JJ. Our next meeting will be on June 9th, 2026, 2 o'clock, same time, same place. It is 5:02 p.m. and we are adjourned.